Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another TokenDargun Relax stream. You know what? I just got that system shock. It just left me shocked, you know? So I had to take a little break from that. But we will be playing a few other video games. I'm also going to be, I got a couple of other things up. But you're not here for that. You are here to watch a nice relaxed stream while we are gonna me and memes of destruction here are gonna kind of pick apart Sargon's video and see exactly what the old Sargon's been up to, you know.
Well, it's very interesting. I started watching about the 12 minutes, about the 12 minutes, Vash. All I know is I saw at least a varying degree of potential collusion, antitrust, as well as some very interesting arguments made, as well as a couple other tidbits in there. But it should be interesting.
Yep, and we got a new subscriber goal there. We got 63 days. Can we do it? Can we actually get 50 people? Can we get 50 subscribers? Everybody, tell your mom, tell your dad, tell your fucking uncle, not the weird uncle, the cool uncle. Tell them all. Make sure to look into this, and that we actually do coherent stories over here.
Now, you can do all those things or simply hit share, likes, one of those things. That does it
yeah.
digitally, it's far easier.
Yeah, if you
Unless
leave a
awkward.
like, it's fucking awesome. It helps us out a lot over here in the Dargan studio. Um, but there we go. We got everything set up. So what's like your first take? What are we looking at here, memes?
Well, this in and of itself is apparently what had happened is Patreon reached out to Matt Christiansen because he has an they had a lot of overlap with the patrons. Since Patreon decided to remove Sargon along with Milo and Jacek Allsup, basically in that round of purges right there, it's a lot of folks said, you know what, you're trying to stifle freedom of speech. So a number of folks have been coming out, canceling their Patreon. Sam Harris recently this week canceled, and he was like the 13th largest podcast on there. I mean, you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars they just walking away from. So this is saying something. So Patreon, a representative who I believe in this interview was the actual one who had the review decision, and they doubled down. They said, you know what? Nope, Sargon, we're not going to let you back on here. So she reached out to Matt, and then Matt had established a conversation with her. Apparently, neither of them had been recording, but somehow we have received a transcription of said call. And this call was actually put out by Sargon a couple of hours ago. And in this, the transcript is read Matt Christensen's point of view by Sargon of Akkad, as well as the Patreon representative by V.
Well, to be fair, there is no evidence that there was a recording, so they did not record. They just took really, 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 really detailed notes.
Again, we somehow have a transcription. However, that may have come about. I may have my own thoughts on how that is, but you know what? That's irrelevant right now. So, Vash, what do you say we get into this transcript?
Yeah, let's go ahead and I'll whenever I press play on this, you can just tell the pause, and I'll pause, and we're gonna tag team this shit.
Let's
All
do
right,
it.
and also, hey Jacob, thank you for joining us, buddy. How are you doing? Hopefully you'll enjoy what we're doing here. But here we go.
Transcript of call between Matt Christiansen and Jacqueline Hart of Patreon on the 20th of December 2018.
So I wanted to reach out to you. We've had a lot of creators on Patreon with concerns, and there was obviously a lot of concern last week. So I wanted to follow up with creators on the platform. So even though you didn't reach out to us, we had others that reached out. So I wanted to make sure that we heard directly from the creators about their concerns would be. And so that's really the reason I set up this call.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and pause it real quick. Just based on that, They want everybody to individually go up. And personally, I think that that is a corporate way of saying, well, we want you guys to individually come up, and we want to take you one by one, instead of actually having so many people together. Because if you have them together saying the same complaints, then there might be some might
It's
be
a
a
lot harder to argue with a collective voice.
yeah, exactly. So they would rather look at just one-on-one type of thing.
Well, part of my thought on this, Vash, is that a lot of folks had reached out. He happened to be a member of the community that didn't even bother to reach out after he lost a substantial portion of his patrons. And it's almost like, all right, they're reaching out to you to make sure you're not going to go. Like, they seem highly concerned, which, I mean, you should be. I mean, after like a response like this, seeing like thousands of people potentially fleeing your platform over.
Yeah. Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, we apparently had some technical difficulties real quick, but
That would never happen on the internet.
yeah, I mean it all froze up, but it's working now. And also playing Killer Instinct, that's fucking awesome, bro. All right, but were you
Yeah, no, just go ahead with the video. It's more interesting the further on we go.
Yep, I wanted to say that first and foremost, because I actually studied into becoming a corporate type of person, and that's one of the things that they kind of do, is they don't want to take on like everybody. They want to take on everybody individually, and it's a way of kind of breaking it down. But here we go.
Sure, I've definitely got a lot of notes and a lot of questions that I'd like to ask. I wanted to begin by just noting the scale of the loss on my account, if you're comfortable with that.
Yes.
I did the numbers this morning. I'm down 39% of my total patrons, 42% of the money on my account. I've been on Patreon 2 years and 3 months now, so over 2 years of work on Patreon is at stake here. I don't know for sure. I'm estimating that roughly an entire year's game has been wiped out. Everything that I was able to grow over 2018 is gone now. I just hope that everyone at Patreon understands the scale of the damage that the decision that they made has caused to uninvolved creators, and I hope you would understand why almost half my patronage will leave, given the decision that you made.
Yes, and that's obviously one of the reasons that I wanted to set up this call, because, sorry, one small thing. I just wanted to make sure that we're not recording. Like, I'm not recording on my side.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, perfect. And just to confirm, like, you're not recording? I'm not recording. Just to make sure that we're both okay with that.
I mean, I live in a two-party consent state. I'd be breaking the law, and California is as well.
Okay, right there. I'm gonna go ahead and pause real quick.
It's yeah.
The whole concept of them saying, "Are we not recording? Is this not on the record?" It definitely shows that they are very much they're very much not wanting this type of information to be out. And he's basically saying, yeah, I'm not recording. And for all intents and purposes right now, that's what we have to go by. But yeah, he's not recording, and they're just taking
yeah, no, it's a good thing. He just responded with yeah, sure, which I mean you could say that's an acknowledgement. You could say that's a half-assed just kind of affirmation there. I mean, it's not like there's anything like three-way calling and somebody in a single-party consent state or anything. I mean, irregardless, somebody has a very good memory, and we have this transcript of the call. So
Yep.
I think Sargon and V can continue on for us.
Yeah. Here we go.
Understood. I just wanted to make sure. I want to recognize that it's a huge loss, and I understand that we are a source of revenue for you, and that's obviously something we don't intend to have happen. But it has happened in this case, and it's something that we want to try to make sure it does not happen in the future.
but do you understand why it happened? I understand you don't intend it, but do you understand why? If you had to explain why, if you had to take a crack at giving an explanation about why people are leaving in these massive numbers, what would you say?
I completely understand that you have a lot of audience overlap, and I've listened to some of your live streams where you discuss the fact that you yourself are a patron of Sargon's. I understand the inner connectivity, and I understand that people are unhappy with Patreon. They're unhappy with the decision, and that it bleeds over into your following as well.
Okay, I'm going to pause it on that again. Now, notice that they are wording their words. Like, Patreon over there is wording everything, and they do bring up Sargon. They do say, yeah, there's a lot of overlap and a lot of interconnectivity. And he was a patron of Sargon's. But the thing is they're avoiding, to me, I honestly think, I see it as they're avoiding the question.
Well, what do they want to say? Are they going to say what a lot of folks have called them out for? They're stifling freedom of speech? Because when you even have like unrelated channels within this part of YouTube, a dude that does mostly shop videos with 1 million or so subscribers, he's like, listen, guys, we're going to recommend to you now to cancel Patreon because this is something that is dangerous in our society that cannot stand. Like, is this a legitimate, is this a call to action, a call to inaction? Is this just drawing a line in the sand saying, you know what, at this point, you're booting this guy off because you don't like the words coming out of his mouth?
Yep.
Well, that would be a load of bullshit.
Oh, definitely. All right, well, I'm glad that we're on the same page. Let's go ahead and continue then.
Is it just this particular area of Patreon, though? Because I've seen people totally unrelated to Sargon, totally unrelated to politics, big-time podcasters, for example, people who don't talk about social issues at all, necessarily, who are saying if they haven't left the platform already, as soon as a competitor becomes available, they will be leaving.
And I very much understand that this all revolves around the definition of free speech and what you can do on a platform. I completely understand that there is interconnectivity, obviously, on the subject, and that there are a lot of people that is something they feel very passionate about and would be interested in not using Patreon.
Does Patreon feel passionately about it, though?
The problem is Patreon takes payments. And while we are obviously supportive of the First Amendment, there are other things we have to consider. Our mission is to found the creative class.
Okay, alright, I'm going to pause it right there. Our mission is to fund the creative class. So, is Sargon not a member of the creative class? I mean, I know that he's a content creator. I've watched quite a few of his different videos.
Well, I mean, if you're in the business of ideas and within the greater skeptical community inside of YouTube, I'll be straight up, dude. I learned what an ad hominem attack was from Sargon. I got to give credit where credit's due, even if I don't always agree with a person. Just like I got to give Coach Red Pill credit for learning me what the Ship of Theseus story was, and by consequence of that, he made me look really smart in front of a bunch of smart people. So you give credit where credit's due. But I mean, in this instance, and it's gonna V in his excellent Valley Girl style accent as an operator at such a corporation, they're gonna get into the reason why, and a lot of it does come down to the payment processors, where we may start seeing a few aspects of, some may term it collusion. I'm sure there's more legal terms for it, but we're gonna have to see.
I mean, personally, my deal with Patreon. By the way, I'm not huge on Patreon, but speaking of which, if you guys want to support me on Patreon, you can go ahead and go over there. The link's in the description. Shill, plug. Okay.
Hashtag capitalism.
Yep. But the other thing is I do have a Patreon, and this is actually concerning for me because whenever I was a patron of like Magog of Morscar and Suit Yourself and a couple of other content creators, and one of the things that I found that were particularly, I guess the word would be disingenuine, would be the fact that it basically what they did was, let's say that I have $5. Let's say Memes over there decides to give me $5 a month on Patreon, right? And I were to decide to go over to like some regular old George, and give him $10 on Patreon. Well, instead of them transacting the $5 to me, instead of that, they decide to up and they just basically just decide to up and go into like another deal where it's basically
They
like,
treat it as an IOU, and they just give it to the other person.
yeah. They instead of giving me the money, instead of giving me that $5, they keep the $5 and then charge me $5 and then give the $5 to Memes over there. Whenever I'm sitting there and I'm going, wait a second, what about my revenue? Why isn't it coming in? Oh, well, it's because you're a patron of this person, and that patron, you're over that. So I'm wondering, where is that money going to? Apparently it's going to a pile, and it's not coming to me, because I should be able to choose how I pay the other patrons that I'm a patron of.
The argument for that, Vash, is if you're doing that, you're minimizing the actual physical transactions, which could lower fees and have less tax implications. However, at the same time, such payments being intertwined and based upon other folks basically just going on an IOU. I believe there was a gentleman by the name of Bernie Madoff that kind of did that kind of skim stuff, and eventually, about $60 billion later, he's in a decent prison facility.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it just doesn't sound like an honest tactic, to be honest. Like, and they just said their words were that they take the payments and they distribute payments. Well, they didn't for a few months. They didn't distribute it to me because I had more people that I was a patron of, and I was happily about that. Like, I was happily, paying other content creators, but I was expecting the payment that I had gotten to go in, because this was during the time that server troll, my server troll on Discord, he decides to up and give me $50 on Patreon. But because I was around $70, I was a patron to so many people that it added up to $70. Instead of giving me the $50, they decide to take the $50 from me, not even giving it to me, and then pay out everybody else and then charge me $20. I mean, for me to book the for me to be able to note like all of this stuff, it's dishonest, personally. Like,
That's a provable loss then. That's actual consumer losing out on something by the way they have it structured there, which is very interesting. Actually, if we go on further, this makes me think of Patreon a little differently, because if they're almost acting as like an escrow account is where just money goes, and it's supposed to be held by like an independent third party for, like, if you're putting down like rent on like an apartment or something like that, they might have you do like a safety deposit or something. That the money is supposed to go into a very specific account that's only dedicated for that. This is very interesting. I think we need to go ahead in the video because she explains a little bit about the payment processes.
Oh yeah, definitely. I just wanted to make sure that was on the record of the TokenDargun Relax stream special. But here we go.
In order to accomplish that mission, we have to build a community of creators that are comfortable sharing a platform. And if we allow certain types of speech that some people would call free speech, the only creators that use Patreon that don't mind their branding associated with that kind of speech would be those who use Patreon, and we fail at our mission. But secondly, as a membership platform...
Wait, I want that to be repeated. Alright.
It's very interesting how she put that, isn't it?
Class. In order to accomplish
that mission, we have to build a community of creators that are comfortable sharing a platform. Okay, kind of like YouTube. And if we allow certain types of speech that some people would call free speech, then only creators that use Patreon that don't mind their branding associated with that kind of speech. Okay, so basically, associated with that kind of speech would be those who use Patreon, and we failed our mission. What can you put this in English for me, Memes? Because I'm not completely understanding what just was said.
It's very convoluted, but from what I'm able to take away from what she's trying to explain is that when she says allow certain types of free speech by those that would call it free speech, essentially what she's saying that if they become a free speech platform and you're able to accept pretty much any type of speech, anything that basically anyone can say anything short of committing a crime, at that point only those folks would use it, and they would fail at their mission trying to get as many potential content creators on there as possible.
I would actually say to Patreon in response of that, look at BitChute. Like, BitChute...
Well, the problem is, look at their actions. They say they did this because they want to essentially disassociate themselves with certain types of free speech, quote-unquote, but by its action, it seems to be harming them as a company.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying, is BitChute ran into this problem a while back, and I was actually on a stream with Suit Yourself about it. How BitChute, they had advertisers that basically said, we have money to give you, and to get your stuff going, but that guy over there, which it was an extremist, that like some sort of like I think Nazi thing, or I don't fucking know, but either way, the advertisers did not like that, and they said, well, we want you to remove that from your platform. And the CEO, I can't really remember his name right now offhand, but the CEO of BitChute just basically said, well, if I remove them from the platform, he basically labeled the Streisand effect. Like, if I remove them, then they're going to get more publicity than if I just let them sit there. All of their videos are only getting around 20 views. Like, 20
yeah, I remember that. They have like 32 followers, and it's like, so you want me to deplatform these people, get them more attention, and you're right, it is an argument, but at that same time, you make all the folks that may support or even tend towards those views, you feel sympathetic, because like, why the hell are you going after these guys? What the hell are they doing? If they're breaking the law, then they break the law. If they're not breaking the law, they're just saying things that you don't like.
Yeah, most definitely. And the guy from BitChute actually turned down I don't know the exact amount, but it was a substantial amount to, because he does, and I don't want to say freedom of speech because that's an American thing, but the ability to say whatever you want to say on the platform, I would say. To be able to say anything and to be held responsible for what you say is, I think, and that's why I personally agree with BitChute. I don't really like it. It seems inconsistent with what they're saying, but we'll go ahead and continue the video real quick.
Accomplish that mission, we have to build a community of creators that are comfortable sharing a platform. And if we allow certain types of speech
that some people would call free speech. The only creators that use Patreon that don't mind their branding associated with that kind of speech would be those who use Patreon, and we fail at our mission. But secondly, as a membership platform, payment processing is one of the core value propositions that we have. Payment processing depends on our ability to use the global payment network, and they have rules for what they will process.
Are you telling me that this was Patreon's decision then, or someone pressured you into this?
No, this was entirely Patreon's decision.
Well then, I don't understand passing the buck off to somebody else.
No, I'm not passing the buck off. The thing is,
Yes,
we
you
have
are.
guidelines. But I'm trying to explain. Number one, it is our mission to fund the creative class, and obviously some people may not want to be associated.
Well, if it's your mission, then payment processors are irrelevant. It's your mission, that's what you're pursuing.
We are not Visa and MasterCard ourselves. We can't just make the rules. That's what I'm saying. There is an extra layer here.
Right, but that...
All right.
That's
all right.
that's that. Then that's the part that we start to delve into, because she says, "Well, we have certain guidelines and everything." So it does seem that some of these payment processors, and this is where you start to get into the antitrust shit, because as soon as Patreon deplatformed Sargon, he then found Subscribestar. He then traveled over there. He pretty much made up almost all the money he'd lost from Patreon within just several days over there.
And then
You
they
had-
attacked Subscribestar, saying that the CEO was a Russian, and there was some possible, like, you know, there was that he could be like a counter-terrorist and all this other stuff, but you know, they don't really want everybody to know about that.
Well, I mean, you just got to launch the ad hoc nukes at somebody and just go after their character. I mean, could there be something there? Maybe. I don't know the background. But as far as this goes, man, the sheer fact that folks went over there, then the big payment processors like Stripe and PayPal, they pull out from there and they essentially crash a platform that literally had no other drama or anything going on before. They're just kind of doing their own thing. All of a sudden, these folks leave because they say, we don't want you here. They go somewhere else to operate, and then all of a sudden, you remove the ability for them to operate. So is this really coming from the platforms, or is it a combination of the platforms and the payment processors just kind of pulling out? And now you basically have a group boycott going on. And when YouTuber Law, I've been following him for a while, man. Even with the Alex Jones thing, he's like, well, companies, like if one company lowers its price, they can lower their price. So if somebody booed Alex Jones, a lot of other of them may have been thinking about that for a while, and then they just kind of follow suit. He's like, that doesn't seem to be a violation. Could you sue? Yes. But in this, he used very strong language as a licensed attorney. He straight up said, he's like, this is an antitrust situation right here, because now you have provable loss as well. You have a provable loss that somebody actually, after being deplatformed, is just all of a sudden, you just crushed it again. It's like, this does seem to be some form of potential market collusion in some way.
Yeah, most definitely. And yes, Navo. Yeah, it's funny how Zidane and Gator were calling Subscribestar a Russian scam. Meanwhile, they're over here doing all of this and going through all these mental gymnastics to explain themselves. And at the same time, they, I believe that it's honestly because Subscribestar was their competition, and they do not like that. They do not like the fact that another entity is going to be doing the same things that Patreon is doing, because it creates competition. I mean, it's one of those deals that it's like, you know, you're calling them a Russian scam for doing the exact same thing that you're doing. Like,
Hey, you know, Vash, this all comes back down to duck season.
Exactly.
Want to get on with it, or
Yeah,
check it out?
definitely. Here we go.
Extra layer is not necessarily relevant if your own goals that you're pursuing are already doing that anyway.
I don't necessarily see it that way. I sort of see it along two lines. So if we said we want this to just be a free speech platform, we're 100% dedicated to free speech, then that isn't really true to our mission.
Okay, on that, I don't necessarily see it that way. I sort of see it along two lines. So if we said we want to be a free speech platform, which is what they were advertising, we're 100% dedicated to free speech. That isn't our mission, really truly our mission. Now, what was the statement of their mission, chat? What was it that they said? I know that you guys have some memory, like some good memory. Let's see here. What was their mission? All right, 5 minutes 32 seconds. Okay.
Their mission was to provide a platform for the creative community and get as many creators using it as possible.
And how are you going to do that without free speech? I mean,
they have the argument that, well, if certain folks are on here, maybe certain folks won't want to be associated with said free speech. That's their argument. However, their actions seem to have disproven that.
Yeah, indeed. All right, let's go ahead and. Oh, hey, Luna. Welcome to the Dargan studio.
Hello. Are you all watching my circle?
Yep.
Give me a link.
Yeah, sure. Give me just a second, and I'll do that. Also, make sure that the mic is a little bit closer to your mouth. That mic's really sensitive. She has my headset on, ladies and gentlemen. And since I have a big fucking head, the mic is just way too far away from her lips. You can bend the whole thing to make it closer. All right, there you go.
How's that?
Perfect. Okay. Oh, whoops. I did not share the My Circle. I am an idiot. I shared my.
This is why we can't have nice
stream.
things, Vash.
Yeah, like a moron, I shared my live stream. There we go. All right, we got the My Circle there. We got everybody here. Oh yeah, and Jacob says hi for you, Lena.
Hi, Jacob.
But yeah, free speech. But here we go.
What % dedicated are you to free speech?
I don't really know how to answer that question. What I'm trying to say is we want to fund the most creators we possibly can. And we believe in free speech. And there are different perspectives on what is free speech.
And your perspective is what?
My personal perspective?
No, Patreon's.
So for Patreon, we can have free speech up to a point. And that's why we have guidelines where the line is drawn.
To summarize my perspective on this entire thing, I think you guys have an untenable standard. These guidelines that you're referencing, I think those are untenable, and I think that you're enforcing them through an unfair process. And so I have several questions related to both the standard and the process that I was hoping to ask you.
Okay, well, let's go for that.
So, as far as the standard, I've read through your statement, I've read through the guidelines, I'm familiar generally with what the website says. I'll admit to you freely, I use language that is banned by your terms all the time, jokingly in conversation with friends, text messages on Skype all the time. If a text message of mine were to leak, or someone got a hold of my Skype communication and sent it to Patreon, would I be subject to banning?
It's a case-by-case basis. You'd have to be much more specific on the details.
Alright, I'm going to go ahead and stop it for a second. It's a case-by-case basis. So, she's not wanting to admit that she would.
Well, when we get ahead, goes into a very interesting argument, and just hearing the voices make the argument that they are, it is kind of hilarious.
Yeah. All right. Here we go. But I just wanted to say that, like, it's that the hesitation on that part, plus the I mean, I know that this isn't the original voice, but I could tell that there would be some hesitation over the line too, especially with having to speak for Patreon as a whole on this. and she did not want to answer that. But I'm gonna go ahead and let it play out. I don't know. Maybe she might change my mind, right, chat? All right, here we go.
Let's say I wrote what Sargon wrote in a Skype chat, in a private conversation.
So again, I would have to look at the context.
Exactly the same. The same context as Sargon.
I don't see how it's exactly the same.
I'm saying if everything was the same, but Sargon said it in a Skype chat instead of on a stream.
So the thing about Sargon, and the thing about your case that you're giving me, is that we do an entire review where we look at your body of work and determine, is this what you, and have you done this multiple times? We have to look at this as your body of work and as you as a creator.
So you're saying it's individual treatment?
Yes.
Alright, I'm pausing right there. So, it's individual treatment. They didn't necessarily want to say yes to the question because they knew that it was going to be that, well, it would defeat their entire argument.
It establishes a parameter.
Yeah, and what this is the hesitation on that, and how they say that they're for content creators, and they have to limit the freedom of speech. So, and by the way, to note, that wasn't even Sargon's fucking stream, if I'm correct. Am I right on that?
You're correct. It wasn't even on his channel.
Yeah, it wasn't even on his channel. It wasn't even his stream. He was.
It was also 10 months ago.
Oh wow! I didn't know that. So it was 10 months ago. Not even on his platform, as a content creator, and they decided to ban him on that. And honestly, Sargon, if you ever listen to this video, I am sorry for this bullshit. Like, I honestly, I truly am. I don't think that this should have happened.
Just take note that the Patreon representative said this is on a case-by-case basis depending on the individual, and then listen to the rest of the video coming right up. It is very entertaining.
Just keep that in mind, chat. Case-by-case basis.
Okay, so here's my question. The people that are getting banned off Patreon, are they all of the same type? Like, are they all controversial YouTubers and not these like what we would refer to as fem Nazis? I guess would be the word. Are they all those? Are the ones that are staying or being ignored for their fem Nazis or whatnot?
No. Sargon of Akkad is known for people say that he's like a Nazi, but he's not a fucking Nazi.
No. What I'm saying is the people that are getting banned, are they the more controversial male YouTubers, or are they?
She's asking, is it equivalent treatment in that other folks that might be saying things people would believe are hateful? Basically, is there equal treatment here? Are we seeing this action? And I think the answer is actually about 3 minutes ahead.
Okay. Well, we'll have that answered in just a couple minutes, all right? And let's take a look at the chat. Vash, Andy Worski, and Ralph did stream celebrating Sargon losing his Patreon. Well, I don't think that should be a thing. Like, you shouldn't celebrate somebody else's loss of income. Let's see here. How am I going to put this?
It's Schadenfreude.
Well, no.
You're taking pleasure in someone else's misery.
Yeah, but there is a quote that I would actually say, and I have been saying it recently, and that is
A loss of livelihood.
well, that's what they're taking, yeah. But it's I gotta think about it real quick, and it's going to make my head hurt a little bit. But there it is. Lo tamod eldam reeka. Do not ignore the bloodshed of your fellow man. You should never, ever look at something and go, ha ha ha! He fucked up and he got banned. Meanwhile, the same thing could be happening, because the same thing could happen to you. Like, I personally,
Very true.
I personally do say that. Like, just pointing the finger and laughing at him because he got deplatformed, that also might show that they were in part of helping that, possibly, but I can't say that. But either way, it can be seen as that a little bit. And personally, I don't think that should be it, but you know, I got to say, you should never do that. And I think Sargon might have that on one of the videos that he has too. But it's a true fact. But let's go ahead and get into this a little bit more.
How is that possibly a viable standard? Shouldn't it be a uniform treatment for everybody?
This is a really great question. And yes, we would love for it to be a uniform standard for everyone. But as you might imagine, it's quite difficult to make something so granular. And I actually don't know if we want to go that direction, because it takes the human element out of it. Right now, today, we have humans that review and reach out to our creators. And so, of course, there are problems with a human process, but we don't do this to be about bots or taking you down because you said 3 words that were over the threshold. We want this to be a holistic review.
Do you understand how that's inherently subjective?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And do you understand how that would make creators like myself and everybody who's leaving very nervous and untrusting of your platform?
So, the thing that we try to do here is have the most diverse team that we can possibly have, so that we have transparency and so that we have multiple views on this. Not that we're operating in some kind of echo chamber. We like to have a process that we have a lot of differing opinions on when we review creators.
Okay, I'm gonna pause it again. I know, I hate pausing it, but that, to me, the whole diversity thing, that narrative sounds pretty familiar. I just wanted to say that, and we'll go ahead and continue with the video. But guys, that narrative does sound very, very fucking familiar.
Okay. I do have questions about that process, and I'll get to those in a minute. And I appreciate you listening to my questions here as well and giving me the time. Given the scale of what you're talking about, what is potentially bannable, do you honestly believe that this can be uniformly and fairly enforced? And if you do, I'm wondering, and many people are wondering, why there are countless terms of service violations on your own site right now. Specifically, I'm talking about people raising money for explicitly violent purposes, and if I search the N-word on Patreon right now, it yields more than 10 pages of results. People posting that same type of content on your platform, no less, that aren't being dealt within the system.
Yes. To explain our process a little bit, because it is inherently manual, we have human beings that deal with this on a case-to-case basis. We rely on user reports to our system. And so this has actually been one of the best ways to receive a lot of user reports, is that people are reporting things like what you just mentioned. We don't go and proactively review the site. We rely on people to report things. We obviously review our site, but it's not like I said, we don't have an algorithm that's trolling our site for us.
Alright, the fact that they use the term trolling, so it's people that are doing this, and people are reviewing it on an individual basis, and it's a diverse group. You see, this does not. This smells like bullshit to me. I'm gonna be.
Well, no, Vash. No, take what she actually said. Because when she said things are brought to our attention through the reporting process, what does that mean? That means there's a report function and submission function there. So there were individuals whom submitted these reviews to Patreon or Sargon, and that ended up being the consequence of the review and said banning. So who would be reporting Sargon for some things?
Yeah, exactly. Now the thing is that works in the same way that the YouTube's flag platform works. Like, if there were a few people that decided to flag a video, then it would work the same way. Like, I mean, this. I honestly don't know what to say to this. Like, it. To me, it sounds like there's a collective, like a hive mind sort of thing going on. You know what I mean? Really
I mean, there could be, but I think a lot of this might be the parody. I think we may have been discussing this within the past week or so. It's all right when I hang out with folks on kind of a bit more of the leftish side of YouTube, let's say, like a Dr. Winter stream. I'll very often hear her say, she's like, if I see someone saying something questionable, I think that might be beyond the pale or something, she's like, no, I'll report that stuff. And they're very open and direct about that. Whereas if you're more on the kind of rightish or libertarianist side of YouTube, very often folks, very often, if you're promoting freedom of speech, you don't see as many folks saying that they're reporting stuff. So I think a lot of this could be explained by a disproportionate amount of folks on one side are not necessarily playing the same game that the folks on the other side are playing.
Yeah, and they may or may not be collecting boulders, right?
Well, I mean, these things happen.
All right, we're gonna continue in on this.
Okay, so just to be clear, what we're talking about then is user reports. We're empowering the mob to notify you, and then you are going to make a subjective decision, as you've described, about what is and is not allowed.
No! What I'm saying is...
When are you going to fucking say yes? I'm sorry. We're gonna continue.
When user report things, like some of the things you just mentioned, we have received user reports in the last week of that. And we are very grateful to have those reports of, hate groups here or there that maybe are using our platform. But we are 170 people, and 10% of that is our trust and safety team today. So we do have a fair...
Alright, I'm gonna pause it just for everybody to look at what she just said. Look at what Patreon just fucking said. Like, right there.
Well, I mean, 170 people, 10 of that is our 17 folks, so...
Well, I mean, yeah, sure, 170 people. Alright. But, she said, we have received user reports in the last week of that. Which basically means that they've... Like, keep in mind, how long ago was that stream?
10 months.
10 months. And they're just receiving this, and they're just deciding to do this?
Don't worry, Vash, it gets worse.
Oh,
No, that question is actually answered very...
Okay.
It's not a good answer.
Like, so far, she's been shit on answers. It's actually kind of pissing me off at how much they're beating around the bush and not wanting to fucking... they're not wanting to give an honest answer. Antifa is on Patreon. Antifa! Are you serious, Jacob? Are you, like... You're
well, here's the thing. Let me ask you this.
Trolling.
No, I have heard similar things. My question is, has anyone actively reported any of those individuals who may have done things that would violate the terms of service?
Oh, well, if it's fucking Antifa...
He says yes, so, well, yeah.
Holy shit. Like, okay, so they're willing to deplatform Sargon, but Antifa, these people that are beating people with fucking bike locks and trying to limit speech and everything. Okay, I'm starting to get the narrative here. All right, let's keep going. We're that they are definitely throwing some rope that it's gonna be a noose. Holy shit. Thank you, memes, for bringing this up, by the way. I have to think that. But
I got you.
here we go. Even if it takes 3 hours, we're getting through this fucking video, ladies and gentlemen. And they use beam mace. Yeah, exactly. Alright, here we go.
Come on.
Right, so what I'm understanding here is that the scale of the issue is much broader than the trust and safety team can manage, therefore there will be uneven targeting and uneven punishment.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Yes, it is. It is what you're saying. He just repeated your shit, just with different fucking words.
Shh, she can't say that though.
Yeah, I know. Let's keep going.
saying that it's an overnight fix.
So people are going to get their justice later.
No.
So people are going to get their justice later. No. All right. Well, that's a.
She answered that too quick.
Well, I mean, keep in mind that this is a transcription, but yeah. Here we go.
What I'm saying is it's not an overnight fix. When I saw the tweet about the N-word appearing on Patreon, it was a situation where we said, great, now we need to dig into those complaints.
Okay. Can somebody in my chat actually? You know what? Hold on. I'll do it. I'm gonna open up a tab here. I'm going to go onto Patreon. Patreon.com. I'm not logged into my Patreon, so there's absolutely no login or anything. I'm going to just search the N-word, and just to make sure, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but in order to keep this to where I can keep doing this shit and everything else, I cannot be able to show you this real quick, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it. I'm gonna go ahead and search it, and searching all the creators. Jedlik Kinetes, creating memes. Michael Niggle, which has $30 a month on Patreon. Good job. N-word girl story continues. That's another Patreon. Hit the N-word baby by Sierra Ruffin. There's another one. Yeah, totally. I see pages on pages on pages here. I'm gonna click on creators only. Let's take a look at that. Maybe. Holy shit, we still have them. Sugar Belly, Art. Niggarte. Let's see here. Yeah, there's so many. Like I'm looking at it, ladies and gentlemen. You can do exactly what I just did right now and see what I'm saying. I can't show it on stream because I don't want to, get.
Well, they would. Here's the thing. They're on it, Vash. They are currently reviewing the situations.
Oh yeah, totally. There's one for hoodoo, voodoo, root work spells. All right. So we have noticed that there are multiple ones that are still on right now as we speak, and they're getting to that. But I'm sorry I had to make sure to remove that to make sure that my stream doesn't get struck, all that good stuff. I got to be a good Dargan over here,
Mm-hmm.
So people are going to get their justice later.
How many days does it take to review that? Because this is a week plus old now, and still out. I looked last night.
Okay, now this is a week plus old now, so This is over like 10 days old, and he's asking how long is it going to take. So let's go ahead and see what the answer is to that.
Right. So the thing is, we are working through those page by page. Obviously, that's not the only report we've received. And again, we are grateful for all the reports that we've received, but now we are shifting through those.
Okay, last question about the standard here. I saw Milo Yiannopoulos was banned for association with the Proud Boys, and in the email Maria from the Trust and Safety team had sent out, she said even though he had disavowed, so it was acknowledged in the email that it was disavowed, it's still grounds for termination. My question would be, what does association mean in Patreon's eyes, and if not for disavowal, how would one sever an association?
Again, it's a case-by-case basis. Every creator is allowed a chance to appeal. I want to make sure that's perfectly clear. Whenever we take action on someone's account, they can always appeal. And so that offer was given to Milo, of course. But the thing with the disavowal is it has to be creators who make that choice. And it's not just, like, if you look at the disavowal, it was a situation where I think a lot of people said this wasn't really a disavowal.
Okay, first of all, who the fuck are you to say what is and isn't a disavowal? First. Secondly, how the hell is this a case-by-case basis whenever clearly Milo said, look, the Proud Boys, I disavow them. I am not a part of them. I am not associated with them.
Well, the issue you run into with this Vash is, well, he didn't actually mean it. The problem with that is, what happens if all of a sudden somebody takes offense to somebody? Then all of a sudden, could not the same argument be used? Well, they didn't really mean it. But you see how they're arguing here, right?
Yeah.
Because in this instance, the Patreon representative is arguing, well, no, everyone is be treated based upon the totality of their circumstances there, whereas you have Matt Christiansen, as voiced by Sargon here, arguing for equal treatment among all patrons and members thereof. Do you see some of the irony in this?
Like, for me, it's the whole thing is how they're saying, oh, well, it's a case-by-case basis. All right, first of all, I don't like Milo. I'm gonna go ahead and say that. I didn't like Milo. Like, from the start, I kind of thought that he was a bit of a snob. Now, I don't want to defend Milo, but at the same time, here I am defending Milo because Patreon decided to sit there and go, oh, well, what he said wasn't genuine enough. Fuck you. Alright? Like, I gotta say to that, on that, fuck you, because even if it wasn't genuine, he still went through the process of doing it. He still went through the process of doing it. So, why? Why is it that he can't be excused? Because it's a case-by-case basis, and you guys are overbooked with all of the reporting. Maybe you should look into how people have been reporting things on YouTube and stuff like that, and the fact that doing the whole appeal. Why don't you go ahead and get a copyright and then have to go through the appeal? Because I had to do that multiple times, and I gotta say, it's not a fair fucking trial. They just look at it and then deny it half the time.
Well, they haven't had to go through all the trials and tribulations that YouTube has for a number of those reasons. They were pretty much kind of just like the middle folks. They're just like the person there. It's like, you give us money, we'll make sure these things get billed, and we'll make sure the content creators get their cash. So basically, they're providing a service, they're taking their cut, everybody gets paid, everyone's happy, but apparently a monkey wrench has been thrown into that.
Oh, yes, indeed. Indeed it has. All right, let's go ahead and continue this as it builds up my fucking rage. God damn, I cannot believe I have seen something so fucking, oh my fucking God. All right, here we go.
Okay, so it's a subjective judgment about whether the disavowal is good enough.
Basically, you can discuss groups on Patreon, but any creator who is praising or actively supporting these groups won't be allowed on Patreon.
I praise Milo, and I enjoy Milo. I've got his picture right back there, actually. Does that make me an associate of a banned person? Am I bannable for that association? I'll tell you right now, I like the guy. I think he's great.
Okay, well, I mean, you know, people like Milo, and I can understand why people like him. That doesn't mean I have to like him, but he does propose a very, very good question here. Am I bannable for that association? Am I bannable because I enjoy Milo? Because I want to follow Milo?
We come down to freedom of association, and freedom of association is one of those things where, dude, I've gone through my stages and shit like that, and I just ultimately I gotta land on you gotta have freedom of association. I mean, unless you're literally in an active like war or something like that, meeting with my friend who is over here, and yes, yeah. I mean, unless there's actually some reasonable suspicion of an extreme thing, it's like you gotta let folks interact, man, because that's the only way we're gonna learn to freaking be able to get past our differences and actually figure this shit out.
Yeah, and my other question to that is, if this is, then I believe I'm gonna butcher his words, but Hitchens, I believe, said on censorship, if someone has the power to censor others, then who has the power to censor them? Kind of like in a way of like who watches the Watchmen, so to speak.
Well, it's the same thing Professor Pierce has been saying. It's like, all right, we're going to ban hate speech. Well, then who defines hate speech? And what Professor Pearson says is exactly the folks who you wouldn't want to define it. And I'm just going to pitch out a random conspiracy theory right now, this far into the video, but I think this may have been a trap.
A trap in what way?
A little bit of bait for Patreon. I'm just throwing it as a conspiracy theory. I have no evidence.
Yeah.
I just want to make that clear. That's all.
Like so it's like a bait and switch method to see exactly what.
I'm just saying that shortly after the call took place, a very full and thorough transcript that we are currently reviewing, as read by Sargon and V, is on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, I could see how one could view that. All right, let's go ahead and continue here.
No, of course. And the thing is, like, my personal feelings have nothing to do with it. But the thing is, it's not Milo that you're being associated with. That's more about a group that you are praising.
Well, I'm praising him, and he is not allowed on Patreon. Why would that not be a similar association?
Praising Milo is not equal to hate speech or something of that nature.
What did he do that's equal to hate speech or something of that nature?
I don't want to get into specific cases. I really...
You emailed me with a reference to a specific case. That's the nature of this conversation, the origin of it.
Absolutely. So I really wanted to get your feedback. And I heard some really good feedback on your live stream last night, where you talked about the fact that when Patreon got rid of Sargon's account, you were a patron of his, and that you never even received a notification that your patronage was cancelled. And I thought that was very thoughtful, great feedback, because I agree. That's yet another place that we can improve our process, and I wanted to hear if you had other thoughts on ways we can improve our process.
Okay, so let me get this straight. In chat, if I'm not being right on this, and Jimmy Hats, your face is offensive. Yes, my face is definitely offensive. But let me get this straight. So, with what she is, with what I'm saying, Patreon is a she because it's a feminine voice. With what she is saying right here is that that's not really hate speech if you like the person. but it's more into like we're going to deny you because you're affiliated with that group, but then comes back again to say that, oh well, we noticed that you are whenever they deplatformed Sargon, they still kept the payments that were coming through from Sargon. They didn't cancel any of the payments. So where is that money going, Patreon? Where is that
Oh,
money going?
they would have paid him out after spending him. They wouldn't just keep it in lieu and just have it be 100% profit.
I honestly think that they're definitely doing that. And to me, if I'm correct, that's not very legal.
Well, there are many arguments. Going to court can be very expensive if you actually play it out. That's why very often a lot of folks don't want to do that, because for the time and effort involved and whatever you get paid, you often don't do it unless you really want to, unless you're trying to be spiteful and vengeful. Just right here, the way she's describing it, man, it almost sounds like it comes down to the mimetic that particular individual takes away. If she takes away as these individuals basically being as true promoters of hate, and she doesn't take Matt Christiansen as being a true promoter of hate, like that's something that would depend on the individual. So I mean, but I mean, as far as a fairness or just setting a platform, that's the thing. We don't know the rules.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, like it does seem very, very dishonest, especially with that, and the fact that they were like, oh well, yeah, that was great feedback, and we're getting right on it. That's basically corporate for, okay, go away, shoo. You know, that's the way I take it. Like, oh yeah, we're taking it into consideration. It's duly noted. Now leave us alone.
We have a team on it.
Yeah, we got a guy. We got a guy, guys. All right, here we go. Let's go ahead and continue.
I do have a lot of thoughts about the process, or questions, because quite frankly, I am not just fearful I'm going to be the target of your trust and safety team, I think it's a matter of time. I don't see a meaningful distinction between myself and the people that you are targeting with your enforcement. I believe subjectively and unfairly. So the process is of particular importance to me if I have any likelihood of remaining on this platform at all. So about the process, how did Patreon become aware of the Sargon stream in question?
Again, we take user reports.
So someone emailed Patreon and said this guy said a bad word on this stream.
No, not at all. So user reports is basically where you can submit information. So you have a tweet or a live stream, something that has to do with someone, you can submit it on our site.
Okay, so tweets count too. If I tweet hate speech tomorrow, that would be considered.
So if your entire basis as a creator, if you are funding that through Patreon, but just to be a little more specific, we're talking about, you. And the case for you, if you have any questions about something you might be saying, is that you can always contact us.
Okay, now they're saying, oh well, you can always contact us. Who the fuck are you to say, Patreon, just pay your fucking people. That's all that you need to do.
She just said they have a tip line.
Yeah, exactly. And they don't really look into that. And by the way, 10 fucking months, really? So when's the statute of limitations on this tip line? Like how far back? There is none. All right, well then that is.
I think she either said it or she's getting ready to.
That is an entirely unfair process. But we're gonna continue into it. Like I said, I smell a lot of bullshit. Sargon and Matt is arguing for communistic principles for the platform based in California. Oh, that was you. Okay. Well, I don't know.
No. You think about it, it's Patreon saying it's an individual basis, but you got Matt, voiced by Sargon in this instance, arguing that folks should be treated fairly and equally. So you need to set the parameters, and as long as you're operating within those parameters, it shouldn't be like, well, we don't like the things you're saying, so bye-bye.
Yeah. And personally, this just reeks of dishonesty right here. And just the way that they're beating around the bush, they know what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing. They
Corporate
don't want to
speak.
explain it. But here we go.
This is one of the things that we do with creators, is if they say, hey, I'm about to go and do this thing, we say, don't link that to Patreon, or don't say this or this.
Okay, so I have to consult you for communication advice.
What I'm talking about is that we've had people that have had photos that are quite controversial. And they've contacted us before and said, is there going to be a problem if I post this on my Patreon?
Okay. Is there going to be a problem if they post it? Alright, keep in mind, there are porn Patreons. There are Patreons specifically for porn.
Shh.
I mean,
Skin is sexier than Sargon dropping N-bombs.
yeah, well, I mean, I'm also talking about people that are making hentai titties and all that stuff too. But like but that's not controversial. That
Vash, this is a different road.
well, either way, it could be controversial, and they're not saying anything about that. I mean,
Well, the
for
interesting
fuck's
thing
sake,
is that's
fucking
actually
Antifa's
the
on
solution.
Patreon. Antifa, fucking Antifa. I mean, I'm not saying deplatform them by no means.
I think
that.
several of their patrons have actually been taken down.
But like I said, by no means am I saying to deplatform them. I don't want them to be deplatformed. If a person wants to fund whatever they want to fund, they should be allowed to fund it. And they should definitely be allowed to do whatever they want to do with their money.
Well, it's a free market principle. It's like if somebody's doing something and people want to invest in that, they should be free to, as long as nothing's being done to break the law.
Yeah, and hello, welcome, Frustrated Atheist. But yeah, I mean, to me, it's the whole capitalistic view of someone that is, let's say someone that's more wealthier, or they're in a better standing than I am, and I decide to say, like, look, man, I need resources, I need funding in order to do what I'm wanting to do, and they go, all right, we'll give you that funding, we'll give you this much a month. To me, that's what Patreon thrives at. That is what Patreon was designed to do, and I was honestly in agreement to it until this. Like, holy shit! And I may or may not be deplatformed on Patreon for this video. Who knows? But
Oh, that would never happen and exemplify something. But dude, the point that you're pointing out, like the whole theory behind Patreon, dude, it's public charity.
yeah, I mean it's much.
Oh, excuse me, no, it's private. It's private charity. My apologies there.
Yeah.
It's private charity funded by the public. You don't actually have necessarily a government program for doing this. It's like just people helping people.
Yeah, and personally, with the fact that they're trying to get in between that, I'm rather concerned.
Well, now you're factoring in disagreements on ideology, and now you're making it political.
Yeah, I mean, let's say Frustrated Atheist has him in the chat, by the way. Let's say that he has a Patreon, and he's very against like flat Earth and religious beliefs. By the way, personally, I don't really care what religious beliefs a person has. I don't. But at the same time, with that, like, let's just say that, and they say, like, a bunch of people that are Christian fundamentalists. I do have one. Awesome. Well, then be sure to support Frustrated Atheist on Patreon, should you choose to.
He is very frustrated, so you can always help a brother out if you want it.
Well, I mean, I've talked to him on quite a few different streams. I do love the way that his mind thinks, and I would say that he's awesome. Whoa! Don't straw man me now, Dargan. No, no, no. What I'm saying is, like, let's say that were to happen. Do you think that it would be right?
I
don't
think
that
he's
it
just
would be
joshing
correct.
you right now. I'm not sure he was actually looking for an answer.
I do.
I think you were just going like, what now? I don't know. I had a buddy in WoW that used to do that all the time.
I
He was
chat
a
with him
silly little gnome
regularly.
rogue.
Yeah, I mean, we chit chat every once in a while, and it's pretty cool. Like, I do like talking with him, and it's Frustrated Atheist. Are you more sober than him? Actually, I gotta say right now, I am 100% sober. Like, other than having a nicotine buzz from smoking a cigarette. But, well, I'm not exactly against people with religious beliefs. Yeah, but I mean, let's just say that his platform is, talking about religious beliefs, and to some people that could be considered controversial. So, Patreon, how is that controversial? And you're not going to say anything about that, or the titty streamers, or the people that are Antifa. Oh well. Yeah,
It comes down to where does it end? It's like, all right, at
exactly.
first they came for Alex Jones, and I didn't really say much of anything. And then they came for Sargon, and Sargon in circles overlap with a lot of other things. It's like, how long until they get to us? So it's like, when you have something like this, and you actually see folks happening, like actually doing stuff and things, like actually putting their money where their mouth is, and the fact that if they are actually violent antitrust with the payment processors pulling out of them basically Subscribestar and potentially influencing them due to political ideology. And dude, this I think, as YouTuber Law said, it probably would require an investigation, at least proposing it, taking a look to see what's going on.
Yes. This is through Discord. If you want to, you can go ahead and join us. I'll even wait for you. But yeah, we are on Discord. Just hit up the waiting room, and I'll drag you in. Yeah, this is very, very disingenuous. This is very. It's honestly, I am truly, truly concerned. And it all goes back to that one phrase. And yes, it is in Numbers. It's in the Bible, but it's still a very, very good phrase to say, and that is to never ignore the bloodshed of your fellow man. Never ignore the bloodshed of your fellow man. Lo Talmud Redam Reeka. It's
That's the thing, dude. If you let it pass, then I mean, who's to stop anyone else, or who's to actually act when it happens to you?
yeah.
And this goes back to kind of like when Professor Pearson brings up like the whole like Nietzschean thing, or no, excuse me, what was it? Gulag Archipelago, Solzhenitsyn there.
Yep.
Basically, he analyzed his life and saw every single potential thing that he did that could contribute to his hell on this earth. And it's just, that's an uncomfortable thing to do. But when you actually analyze it and you view the darkness that may exist within you, then you can at least acknowledge it and just try to put yourself in a better direction if you care to.
Frustrated. Are you still a part of? Yeah. Okay, I see you there. All right. Yeah. Come on into the waiting room. I'll bring you up. Actually, I think yeah, you have the content creators role. You can just pop right in. Yeah, the way that I have it set up, you should be able to enter into the Dargan studio right now. But if you don't, then you can just hit up the waiting room, and I can drag you in, and it'll work out. But yeah, I'm legitimately concerned about this. Like, I don't understand how they can say this and say that it's a case-by-case basis. Does that mean that you're picking favorites, Patreon?
Well, no, they have to say that. They have to justify the reason why. You can almost always, it's kind of like if you're trying to get rid of somebody from like any type of job or something, they do something. It's like, well, Oh well, you showed up like 2 minutes late the other day or everything, and then you couldn't fight that and stuff, and you have to say equal treatment and this and that. But a lot of folks just say screw it, and they just don't even bother because it's a pain in the ass and it's very expensive.
Yeah.
But what's going on here, dude? Like, if they continue to do this, and if it happened to be because of political ideology, Patreon is established and incorporated in California. California is one of 2 states that lists political affiliation or ideology as a protected class. Like, that would actually be discrimination, potentially, if it was because of political ideology. That's why they need to give every other reason aside from political ideology.
Yeah, they definitely do not want to appear disingenuous, and currently I'll wait. Oh, there he is. All right, I'll bring him in. Go ahead and bring him in already, and there we go. Welcome, Frustrated Atheist. Sorry, I didn't see you over there.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Not much. We're just reviewing this transcript, and I gotta say, I'm pretty concerned with how it's going. Like,
We're taking a look. We seem to have covered potential antitrust conspiracy, collusion.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, dude, that's the thing, because the sheer fact that they basically nuked one of Patreon's competitors, like, you boot Sargon off, he goes to Subscribestar, you start seeing an exodus to a competitor, all of a sudden major payment processors pull out. Yet this transcript is also revealing at the same time that Patreon in and of itself has certain guidelines. They have certain parameters they need to follow, because if they were to necessarily have things happen via some of their members there, payment processors might not even process Patreon's payments, which then goes into another section of the discussion, which I thought Patreon was a payment processor, but they just kind of seem to be the website where people sign up, and then they have Stripe, PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, actual full networks for payment processing handling it. So it leads into the discussion of, all right, so what the heck's actually going on here?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's 2 things that I have to say with all of this. One, it is very shady, because when it comes to Sargon's case, before he said what he said,
Mhm.
and got, of course, booted, their terms of services said that, they will never kick you off of Patreon if something is said on your channel, or whatever you have affiliated with their Patreon account, with your Patreon account. That if it was on someone else's channel or someone else's whatever,
That's what Jack Conte told Dave Rubin.
they will not affect. Yeah, they will not affect. It would not affect you. So you can go and say whatever.
It was only on Patreon.
Yeah, you can go and say whatever on other people's stuff, but it won't affect your personal account. Now, this was a thing, from my understanding, that he had done. It was a private thing. It wasn't even supposed to be recorded, or it wasn't on air or anything like that. And he just so happened to say this. I mean, it's a shitty thing to say, regardless. I want to make that clear. It is definitely a shitty thing for him to say, period. However, it was said privately, and it wasn't supposed to be going anywhere besides within that small little group.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
the fact that it got out and about, and then he had gotten booted for it, it makes it a little shady. However, we also have
this information has been out here right after it was said. It's been out there in the public domain for 10 months.
Yeah, and the thing is we've also have to take into account that there can be other contributing factors. We just know of this one particular incident of occurrence. However, we don't know if Patreon had ever contacted him before, and said, "Hey, look, if you say anything else that kind of is
As
shady."
far as I understand, Sargon was never given a.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, as far as we're all kind of working on second and third hand, information. We're not getting it directly from the source. So,
I do
even
think
if that,
Sargon said he didn't receive a warning. You can take that for whatever it's worth, but I also haven't seen Patreon come out with any actual letter, like a pre-warning or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah,
there may have been.
like I said, I mean, there might have been warnings before that he just didn't. He kind of just brushed aside, and he could have not had a single warning at all. I personally, like I said, I believe everything about this is shady as fuck.
Yeah, exactly. Like, personally,
It's
I agree with you on that. Like, to me, it makes it seem a lot more, I don't know how to explain it, but in a corporate, like, I've studied in college about how business administration and stuff like that. Like, to me, it's very, I don't know. Like, if it was a stock, I would say not to trust it, you know?
yeah,
Well,
because
see,
I mean,
Jimmy Hats in the chat says it kind of feels like we're beating a dead horse at this point. I'm almost terrified too. I'd say maybe we should watch a little bit further into the video to see what happens with the rest of this conversation, because the further we get, the further offended we all seem to be getting.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
also, we're not beating a dead horse. We are thoroughly examining this one video.
yeah, and the thing is when it comes to something like this, especially with people like Sargon or other individuals who are being affected, who were not even a part of any of this, are being affected, it doesn't matter how much you cover it. It is something that needs to be said and needs to be
Yeah.
brought up and needs to be talked about, because if we don't, then, as some people say, where will Patreon eventually stop?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, where's
Well, that's
the
the
line?
one thing. That's why we're doing this, man. Because it's just one more. Even if it's just a couple of folks just watch this, this is another piece of content discussing a particular issue.
Well, I mean, I have a funny feeling that Sargon may or may not watch this video. But, and if you are, hi, I really liked your earlier videos and stuff.
I really, the thing is when it comes to Sargon is I never really watched any of his content. However, like you said, if he does end up somehow watching this because of searching for just his name or whatever, then I will have to say that if you do watch the Sargon, this I have to agree with just about anyone who goes and looks at this. It's extremely shady what happened to you. I don't really have any feelings towards you whatsoever, but it is definitely shady what's going on with your situation.
Yeah, and also, Frustrated, did you get the, My Circle? I DM'd it to you.
I saw that. I did see that. What is that?
We watched the video together. It keeps us all in sync.
Yeah, it keeps us where we can all watch the video, and then, like, whenever you want to say something, just say pause, and I'll pause the video, and then we can say what we need to say, and we're getting through this bit by bit. I want to do a thorough investigation on this, because I gotta say, these 17 minutes we've been talking about for an hour and a half, and I gotta say, it's just, the more that we pull the string, the more that we see, like, the more that we see how disingenuous and how shady this is becoming. And let's see here, Jacob Vash also, if you make fun of Stream Me, that's for some reason making fun of Ralph. I gotta say, I support Stream Me a little bit. I do like their features and stuff. And to be honest, it creates competition with YouTube, and I think YouTube and StreamMe can grow with that competition. But
well, that's the thing. We're getting so many more folks onto the internet, so it's an ever increasing market at this point.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be monopolized. But let's Is everybody else ready to keep playing? Yeah? Alright, here we go.
Do it.
Frustrated, are you in?
Yeah, I'm in there.
Okay, cool. Alright, we're gonna go ahead and play. And like I said, if you want me to pause the video, just say pause, say whatever you want to say, and then we'll resume after the conversation. Here we go.
Okay.
But do you see how you've inserted yourself unnecessarily here? What makes Patreon succeed, what makes people like me succeed on Patreon, is the relationship between the people who enjoy my content and me. And it's really up to them whether they decide if it's too controversial or not. And if it is, they'll support me or not, and all you'll have to do is sit back and allow the market to function. Instead, you've inserted yourself, and you're trying to influence that content. Do you see how that's a problem?
We are not a free market. And this goes back to...
Okay, I'm glad you admit that.
This goes back to what I was saying about that we are a payment processor and that this is one of our core value propositions that we have, is that payment processing depends on our ability to use payment networks, and we have to abide by those rules.
Okay, the payment networks, and we have to abide by those rules. It really does seem really shady. It really does. But let's go ahead and I just wanted to say that let's go ahead and go into it unless one of you guys want to say something. All right.
Just
So
keep
that-
going.
Yeah.
Is not what you've been telling me repeatedly. You go back and forth between telling me we have to uphold our ideal and then passing the buck off to payment processors who are holding you to this standard begrudgingly, I suppose. Either you agree with that standard or you don't.
What I am saying is we have to have policies whether or not I personally believe in something or...
When you say you, I mean Patreon, obviously.
The problem, though, is that Patreon itself has to base their guidelines on the people that they work with and that they share information with, and so...
But you've been telling me this whole time that you support those guidelines.
I do support those guidelines.
Okay, so...
But you have to base those on something, so... This is what I'm saying. Even if I personally came into Patreon and said, I believe 100% in free speech, I will not be able to make that guidelines, even if that's what I personally believe. We have a lot of people here who believe that.
Well, let me ask you this. Has there ever been a case where a payment processor has come to Patreon and said, you guys are enabling too much hate speech, we're going to cut you off?
As in Patreon?
Yeah. Is there a reason that you have to bend the knee to these payment processors? Have they made you bend the knee before?
I am not going to get into a discussion about our payment partners specifically.
Well, you brought up the payment partners. You initiated that conversation, not me.
What I'm saying is, we exist in a world where we want to give payment to creators. We are an intermediary.
Not with lots of asterisks, right?
Well, what I'm saying is that you could, yourself, go and get a merchant account. You could absolutely go to a bank and set up a merchant account, and you would be dealing one-to-one with the bank, whereas Patreon has set up a relationship with the bank in order to pay you and other creators and potentially, get you critical mass of better rate or, give you a home on a platform. But at the end of the day, it's about us paying creators. That's our mission, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, I'm going to pause. That is their mission, paying creators. Okay, so we have them saying that that's their mission. They've deplatformed Sargon. By the way, whenever they did deplatform Sargon, I'm not sure if you missed it, Frustrated Atheist, but Matt Christiansen still had his payments that were going to go to Sargon. Whenever Sargon was removed from their account, they did not remove the whole deal of paying Sargon. Now, the question on that is, where is that money going? Is the question on that part.
Okay, so Matt here, who was going through Patreon and paying Sargon, for his content.
Mm-hmm.
whenever Sargon got off of Patreon, where they completely removed Sargon, his money was still going to what would have been Sargon, but since Sargon's not there anymore, it's going directly to Patreon. And Patreon pretty much does whatever they want with it.
Show me the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you're going to sit there and still take out money from the person that you've kicked off already, the money that was supposed to go to him, and then all of a sudden he's not there, so you're still taking that money, the only conclusion that people are left to draw now is that you're either taking that money or you are taking it and allocating it to whatever revenue stream with whatever other creators that you see fit, which now is completely and utterly reprehensible, because that's just wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
If I, like, for instance, Dargan, if I go to get on Patreon and I go and donate to you, well, all of a sudden you just so happen to let on the wrong person, and they sit there and say something like the N-word, like what happened with Sargon or whatever, and Patreon decides to kick you off. That money was supposed to go to you.
Yep.
I only wanted that money to go to you. And now Patreon keeps taking that money, even though you are no longer on there.
Well, FA, it's even a little bit crazy the way Vash was describing how they did it earlier. Like,
yeah,
they actually have
server
payments
trolls in
going
the chat
back
right
and
now.
forth. I think it's done for tax purposes, but go.
Like, server trolls in the chat right now. There was a time where he wanted me to play Baldi's Basics. Now, as a joke, I had said, you know, kind of jokingly, I said, look, if you pay me $50, I'll go back to it and I'll do it. And sure enough, sure as shit, he paid $50 on Patreon. Now the thing is during that time, I also had a decent job. I was also, you know, I was also supporting like people like Magog. I was supporting people like Suit Yourself. And by the way, both of you are awesome fucking creators if you're listening. Love your work. But I was able to support them, and I had a total of like around $70 with all of the Patreon subscriptions I had. Now what they did though was they did not bill me the money of the $50 that Server Troll sent me, but instead gave that $50 to the rest of the other patrons that I was a part of, and then billed me the extra $20 and said, you know, you have to pay, you know, your stuff, but at the same time, no, we're not going to give you that $50. Now, to me, I think that that's a bit dishonest, especially considering that they did not have that in their guidelines at all. And, like, I was sitting there going, well, what about that $50? Why is it not coming to me and then let me choose how I want to pay the rest of them? Because that can give a lot of people into some deep shit with banks, you know. That could overdraft.
You are definitely what's happening there is Patreon is taking into their own hands and allocating your money that was supposed to be going to you.
Yeah.
They are allocating it as they see fit. Now, I'm sorry for what, you know, whoever might listen that doesn't agree with this, but that's fucking wrong. I mean,
No, dude. I think it might actually be even more bizarre than that, because the way Vash was describing that, it almost sounds like they say they're an intermediary. In theory, what they're acting as is a big escrow account, kind of like a slush fund for folks paying in and then they pay out. But it almost sounds like the way it's set up through the payment processors, that they're setting it up for you individually, basically almost creating almost like a merchant ID for the individual creator, and then just webbing everybody up. So it's like, all right, this money goes here, this money goes here. Yes, it is partially probably for tax purposes, but I think they could do the same thing by just acting as a big escrow account. So this in and of itself, how these payments are just all structured and payments going to other folks, I mean, like, this it seems very bizarre, like a spider web here. I'm not sure the legality of all this, but
from the way you just now describe it, it seems that what pretty much is happening is, for instance, there was a big ado about it with, but where pretty much what happens is you are getting money from somebody, and it's supposed to be going towards a specific thing. Well, you spend it on other things, and so in order to keep the revenue going, you keep attracting more and more clients to the services that you are supposed to be, giving.
that's a pyramid scheme, and that's what Bernie Madoff kind of did.
Yeah.
Have y'all ever seen the movie called The Polka King? It's got Jack Black in it.
I think
so, but it was a while back.
Yeah, it's a movie that's on Netflix, and it's based on a real life story of this guy who was known as the Polka King over there in I want to say like Philadelphia or something. And he pretty much what happened was he was getting people to give him money. It was illegal what he was doing because he didn't go through the legal channels to do it. And so he was told to shut it down. And so he said, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that." But he doesn't, and he keeps it going. And pretty much what happens is people are paying him. He spends all this money on other things. And then the only way that he can eventually pay people back is by getting more people to sign up to help fund his
Ponzi scheme. Sorry, I used the wrong term earlier. Yeah, it's a Ponzi scheme.
It definitely seems like a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
It you're pretty much having all these other people donate to you, so that way you can pay off the people who came in before them.
Yeah.
And so this is what it's starting to sound like, is that Patreon has just created and it could be a legal form of it, but it seems like it could be a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
Well, it's just the way the payments are routed there, because like I said, like the way I thought it was is everyone's paying Patreon, and then Patreon distributes the funds. It sounds like things are set up in such a way that it's like you just got a whole bunch of IOUs all over the place, and I don't know, man. It seems kind of sketchy.
So whenever I signed up for Patreon, my understanding of this was Patreon gets their cut of whatever the people donate, which is fine because, after all, they are providing a service.
Yep.
They get their cut, and then the rest of that money goes to the content creators that they're supposed to be for. So whenever something like kicking Sargon off happens, that money that was supposed to be for Sargon, going to Sargon, should then go back to the people who, they can sit there, and if they paid for a month, but then Sargon gets kicked off at within the middle of the month, whatever they just paid should go back to them.
They should be refunded.
Yes,
they should be refunded. But the way the money is gone, it's not happening.
Yeah, and so this is sounding like something that is definitely not what I thought it was whenever I signed up to have my Patreon.
Yeah, I didn't know this until, like I said, until Server Troll decided to inform me, hey, I did change my Patreon subscription to $50, and then I checked it, and I was like, wait, hold on, let's take a look here, and it showed that he did actually pay the $50, and he had the receipt, and I did do I did do the Baldi's Basics. If anybody wants to see it, they can look at it back there. But the whole thing is the fact that $50 did not come into our account. That did not come into my hands. What it did was it moved to the other content creators that I was a member of, whenever it should have just gave me the $50 and then gave me
hold on, I'll be right back. I've got to do something real quick.
No worries.
Yeah, and again, as we said, like that's likely for tax purposes. But I mean, then again, I want to believe that that's the reason, and there is a certain level of credence to that. But at the same time, it seems strange. It's almost like, if anything, they should actually give you like a statement saying it's like they're crediting you with this and showing they need to be more forthright about it just to show where it's going, because otherwise, if you just have an interconnected web of, well, I owe this person this, I owe this person this, and when something like this happens, if you don't see immediate refund, especially if they don't provide any form of a refund, then that they're basically taking people's money.
Yeah,
That ain't
because
cool.
I mean, the whole concept of it was, the situation that I was in at the time. Me and Luna were both working at the same job. We both had the same shift, everything else. But at that time, I didn't necessarily have like gas money and a little bit for grocery, a little bit of grocery stuff for that week. And so I was sitting there going, all right, well, that $50 will help me out on that. I'll be able to do that and be able to use it for that purpose, and then I'll be able to pay the other people that I'm a subscribed to later on my paycheck, which happened every week. Um, and I was under the impression that would have happened. But what had actually happened was the fact that they were sitting there saying, "Oh well, no. Instead, we just went ahead and paid these guys for you." And I'm like, no, because if you do that and then charge my account, well, what if I had only $5 in the bank account? Guess what? I got overdraft fees and everything else, and I wouldn't be able to actually hold that bank account anymore because of what they just did. I mean, thankfully, there was, I don't even mind the taxes, but if your patron isn't even aware of the donation as big as $50, then isn't that a red alert in itself? Yes, I do agree with you on that, because I know Server Troll remembers this very well, because I pitched a pretty big fit about it. And it wasn't to him, it was towards Patreon. Like, I was rather angered by it, because to me, I was under the implication that whatever money is being donated to me is just that, it's my money now. Like, they donated it to me, they donated it for me to use, and I should be able to choose whether that money in particular goes to another content creator. Now, I'm not saying that I would have said, like, I'm not saying that I would have just completely been like, no, I'm not going to support these guys. No, because I would be putting money into it, because I did subscribe to the payments. I did do that. But exactly, isn't that a red alert? Isn't that something that people should actually kind of be a bit wary about?
They're almost just matching. It's like, well, this much money, so you're actually paying this person, which, I mean, it is very. It's not what I thought it was. Let me just put it that way. So I'm not sure if FA is back and where in the video we're at.
I think he'll be right back. Personally, I'm gonna go ahead and roll up another smoke real quick, but yeah, we can banter about this a little bit. Let's like what personally, I honestly think that that's exactly what we've been saying. It seems like a Ponzi scheme.
And this is one of those things where I think, unfortunately, there are a lot of entities that end up doing this, especially in the business world at times. And in the financials, a lot of times, like has been said, it's like, yeah, this could be fully legal, absolutely. But once you start peeling back some layers, I think, unfortunately, there's always going to be skeletons everywhere. And once these layers keep getting peeled back, if you start seeing questionable activities, I mean, at least maybe it would be an impetus to maybe clarify certain ways things should be done, or if this really is a Ponzi scheme, dude. I mean, like this is something that's going to be national and probably international news and everything, just because it goes from, all right, a guy that said some really mean, terrible shit to other folks, basically off platform, things were violated, potential antitrust statutes were violated by destroying a competitor in SubscribeStar, and it turns out that the internal workings of said company were end up being kind of a Ponzi scheme. I mean, that would be just, I don't know. We need to see the evidence.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's all of this tape is leading towards one direction, and I don't like the direction that it's leading towards, to be honest with you, memes. I really don't.
I mean, it's one of those things where, like, you know what? Hey, even if Sargon wasn't the martyr we asked for, maybe he was the martyr we needed.
He's not the hero that we asked for, but he's the hero that we deserve.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I can argue with that.
He's the motherfucking Sargon. But yeah,
that is that Rookham. I did like it, and it just I get it, but it's
oh snap! We got a dingling, and Angry Katarina Main donated $10. Thank you, Server Troll. That is awesome. Thank you.
Oh my God, people are giving us money.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And like that, with the thing is about Streamlabs, is that goes directly into my PayPal almost instantly. Like
actually, what's very interesting, Vash, is one of the things that the Patreon rep brought up earlier was, well, we work through these processing networks, and what she said is, well, if you went to a bank and got yourself a merchant account, then you could do something like that. So again, I would depend on the banking institution. It would depend on maybe whatever fees they have. But in fact, if you actually had enough of a patronage, it may be well worth it to go to a different bank that have a merchant ID right there, and then any processing could just go directly to you.
Well, that's the thing is
it circumvents PayPal and Stripe.
Well, with this, like, it should have just went directly to the PayPal. Like, if I should choose to use PayPal as my banking information, then they should respect that.
Oh no! I'm talking about in the Patreon case, not the Streamlabs. My apologies.
Oh yeah, but I'm meaning with Patreon, they should still respect that. If I say, hey, I want all of my stuff to be directed towards PayPal. I don't trust banks. You know, if I say that, then they should be able to respect that, and they should just give the money directly to my PayPal.
Well, they should. But then again, if you become problematic, then I guess we should outlaw.
Who is to define who is problematic and not?
Well, probably the person that you'd least want to.
There you go. Yeah. But yeah. Now that I got my cigarette rolled up, we can go ahead and continue this video. And thank you so much, Server Troll, for giving me that $10. That's fucking awesome, bro. And
you're keeping these double dargans going.
Hell yeah. Alright, let's get right back into it.
Is it? Or is it upholding your ideology? Because that seems to be of a primary importance. Paying creators is secondary.
No! But the main mission is paying creators. Everything else is secondary.
To the extent that they fit the ideology, to the extent that they have behaved within your terms, if you want to phrase it that way.
You do have to abide with the guidelines in order to process payments through Patreon. Yes.
Okay, so you had mentioned, because Jack Conte had mentioned this last year around the Lauren Southern banning, and maybe it's just because I didn't see the discussion of this that I was under the impression that it didn't happen, but Jack Conte mentioned last year that there would be a system of warning and appeal on Patreon. You mentioned appeal previously. Is there a warning? Why did Sargon not receive a warning? Hey, you've kind of...
Oh.
You've crossed the line here, let's talk.
Let's see here. Red Beyblade Main donated $1. Thank you. That's awesome. Not sure who you were, but thank you for donating that. That is fucking awesome.
Every little bit counts.
Getting fucking fired up.
Dude, Vash, I'm starting to believe more and more this was a trap. I believe it was highly effective, but I still kind of think this was a trap.
But either way, it's still getting that information that it should. Now,
Well, some may consider it undercover journalism.
the whole that was actually me. Oh well, thank you again, Server Troll. You're awesome. But yeah, here we go. Let's see here. Is there a warning? Why did Sargon not receive a warning? So it shows that Sargon did not receive a warning whenever this was happening. Now the whole Lauren, what exactly happened with her? I wasn't really in the
Lauren Southern, basically what happened is she was either on a vessel that was blocking something, but from the footage that I saw at one point, she did launch a flare towards a ship that was carrying migrants into, I believe, Italy or somewhere over in Europe. I see the thing is with that, you could at least extrapolate that out, saying she was launching an incendiary device towards a navigable vessel, which it probably is illegal. I mean, even if the ship was far out of her range and everything, you could at least say you were firing something that could have caught something on fire. So hers, there was backlash, but we didn't see anything like this, because I don't think Sargon's been firing any flares at any boats recently.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't see him doing that at all. He seems to be rather non-violent type of person, from what I've seen on his interviews with I can't remember who it was, but there's been quite a few interviews that I've seen, and he is not really that violent of a person. I mean, otherwise.
He grabbed an Antifa dude by the arm or shirt after he had pretty much been touched by that Antifa person, but he didn't sock him in the face.
Yeah, I mean, but at the same time, if I was assaulted, I would honestly react in a different way. Someone should do a normal reading of this transcript so it can be fit for Fox News. Well,
I think this is fitting.
Yeah.
I think V is doing an excellent job. It's almost as if they've done our piece together before or something.
But thank you. I just wanted to thank you, Paranormal is Real, for just taking the time out to come over and listen to us speak on this. But yeah, to me, it shows that he didn't receive a warning. They said that they would have a warning system, but they did not put it in. So let's see further where this leads. And I personally think that yes, this is under the bounds of investigative journalism. But here we go.
About it.
So with the warning system, any creator is free to submit an appeal, as I mentioned. Milo, Sargon, anyone who has been removed from or taken down from our platform is allowed to appeal. The process of a warning system is very difficult, because then it goes back to the thing that I said before. What do you have? Do you have 2 words that fall into a tier 1 category? You have 3 that fall into a tier 2. Like, it's very difficult to write a policy like that. I think what you are saying as well. So for us, what we feel works the best is more of having an appeal process.
Okay, I'm going to pause it right there. What we feel works the best. What like the way that she.
There we go. A little bit subjective there.
Yeah, the way that she has been phrasing this is just it's very, very roundabout. And the fact that they're saying, oh well, doing the warning would be like apparently to what I'm getting on this, if I'm interpreting this correctly, it's why didn't he get a warning? Because warnings are hard. It's hard to do that. Well, I mean, if you're if I'm correct, Patreon is getting fucking bank right now. Last time I checked.
Well, things aren't going well. They've seen an exodus.
Oh, well,
I mean, you could say it's a relatively small percent, but it's much more than just a couple dozen folks. I think they've seen 1,000 plus Patreon supporters leave, and a lot of those had certain overlaps.
yeah. And to be honest, like, the way that they're doing it, like the whole tier 1, tier 2, yes, that's exactly what you need to do. That if you're wanting to create a warning system, that's what you need to fucking put out. That's what you need to do.
Well, I think the fact is there's a sheer lack of clarity here.
Exactly. And it's, I gotta say, from what it seems to be, I thought that the fucking YouTube guidelines were vague. Holy shit. Alright, let's go ahead and continue though.
So if we take creators down, and we say to that creator, you can appeal this process and reform, that is wildly successful in the majority of cases that we have, where the creator is back up on the site and taking payments again.
I guess I'm a little bit confused. If the system is all about individuals on a case-by-case basis and humans operating with humans, why would the initial reaction not be to reach out to that person instead of just hitting the delete button and letting them find out through their friends realizing that this has happened?
And again, it depends on the situation. Because we do have situations where it's some small thing. Or like I said, you posted something to your Patreon page that's not suitable for all ages.
Keep in mind, not suitable for all ages. I just mentioned previously that they do have porn Patreon deals. They do have stuff that's NSFW. To me, I think that the whole, oh, well, it depends on the situation. She said that at least 40 to 50 times now. But the whole fact that it's not suitable for all ages is hentai and stuff like that, that's like NSFW, is that suitable for all ages? Because I would disagree, because I have to click on an 18 plus thing every time.
No, as long as it's properly age gated, then that should be fine because it's under the correct classification.
But she doesn't specify that.
Well, that seems to be the inherent problem that we keep running into.
Yeah. All right, we'll continue. I'm not sure if oh no, I guess Frustrated Atheist had to do something. All right, here we go. We're gonna go ahead and get back into it though. But Frustrated Atheist, since I had finally noticed that you had to go and do stuff, thank you for coming in and giving your opinion on it. And you're more than welcome to come back in. I'll have Luna drag you into the waiting room and everything else. By the way, any other content creators, if you guys want to come in and say your piece on it too, you can.
Anybody that has the content creator role in our Discord server can go ahead and anybody that has a content creator role in our Discord server can go ahead and join the Darken Studio without us pulling them in.
Yep. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and continue this. And Server Troll, thank you for posting that. I will put it up and after this review. Found this that has Sargon making a cameo in there too. Cool. Hey, what's up, Gaming Cube? This is some really important shit. Thank you for joining. And here we go.
We reach out to you and say, you need to take it down or make it patron only. We do have situations where that happens.
So why didn't Sargon get that? What was the distinction in the Sargon situation?
This is a much different situation than you having a small thing on your Patreon page.
Okay, so what's the difference between a small thing and a big thing?
Again, it's subjective. You've already mentioned.
Okay.
is actually reviewing Sargon. So it's also a case that we were public about in 2017. So that to us counts as basically he understood where the line was, and we...
So is there X amount of strikes? Is that how it works? You get 3 strikes and you're out, or is that subjective too?
No. We do not have a strike policy. But the fact that in 2017 we talked about this case publicly, that to me would indicate that yes, this creator has been given a warning. And again...
Okay,
so publicly saying that, you know, about a certain case, which, by the way, wouldn't really say that, that no one would, be able to. I like to game in my cubicle. Okay, server troll. But what it's saying there is very, very disingenuous, and the fact that it was saying, oh well, we don't have a 3-strike policy. That to me just means that if they don't like you, they could bam, you're gone.
Well, it was a purported solution that basically YouTube has put in place. That's why they have the strike system, so you can at least have some level of points saying, hey, don't do that again.
Yeah. And personally, as much as I disagree with some of the YouTube guidelines, I still see that as reasonable if it's used well, if it's actually done right. But the way that
it comes down to equal enforcement under the rules, right?
Yeah, equality.
I hear that's a good thing.
Yeah, I know, right? All right, here we go. Let's see what old Matt Christiansen says to this.
Can feel confident because I have not been given a warning by Patreon at all. So I can feel confident that I would be given a warning if I did something that you find to be egregious and against your terms.
So, you and I are having a conversation right now. If you're concerned something that you may be saying or may say in the future...
Yeah, I've got a ton of text messages in here that have N-words and F-words and all kinds of bad stuff. If I were to show them to you, would that be a warning for me?
Okay, again, I would really appreciate if you do have something, well, take context into account, that you would reach out to us if you have...
I'll confess all my sins right now. I said bad words to my dad in a text last night, if you want me to read them to you.
It's not... I feel like it's not germane to our discussion. But again, if there is something that, like, you know, you really want to go out and say and do, then please reach out to us.
Okay, right here. What exactly is the definition germane? What is that? What does that word mean?
Something very small, like innocuous. Basically, it's not going to really ruffle any feathers.
All right, so it's a minuscule thing. It's a very, very small. Okay. With that, I personally say that Sargon, what he did was rather small. Like,
well, excuse me, no, I stand corrected. It actually means pertinent from Paranormal Israel in the chat. Hey, what's going on there? I looked at the context. I thought I was wrong.
But yeah, this is very I don't know what to say to that.
No, dude, it's worse. Like, if you want to go out and do something that may potentially we might not like, please reach out to us. Yeah. She's letting Matt Christiansen know that you can ask us for permission.
You can ask us for permission before we decide to say. So it's basically you tell us and we'll tell you what's right and wrong.
Right. So now we're Senpai Poppy, we pay you Patreon?
I mean, that doesn't sound like a very good idea. But
it's just concerning. It's like, all right, we're happy to do business with you, but if you're gonna do anything that might be out there, double check with us. That's...
Yeah, I
think I get what she's saying, but it's... I
gotta get Papa Patreon's permission if I want to do something. I mean, that's what I see it as. Like, I gotta get Daddy's permission before I can do this.
Yeah, I hesitate to say it, but we should go on because the more we listen, the more concerning this kind of becomes.
Oh, yeah. Alright. So, here we go.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned that in future, because that's different from what happened here. Sargon, of course, was punished for something that's well in the past at this point. Is there any
10
statute
months.
of limitations on how far back you're willing to go? Let's say I did something 10 years ago. Is that considered?
It's interesting that you mention it being so far in the past, because I think you're talking about the main video from the spring. But there was another video that goes with it that was from November, where he doubles down on what he was saying in the spring, and so that to me feels very relevant.
Okay, so what is the implication that I'm to take here? That there is a statute of limitations of how far back you're willing to go?
Again, it's a case-by-case basis.
Okay, so there is no line.
Well, this is what I am trying to say, that we do take context into account. So it's not like we're sorting through your entire history and trying to look for something that you've ever said. That's not what this is about at all. But if there's something that's relevant, and, it seems fair to say that older something is, the less relevant it is.
Okay, in offering Sargon appeal, you asked him to prove a negative. You asked him to provide evidence that it's not hate speech. What would that evidence possibly look like, and how does one prove the negative? Can you give me an example of evidence Sargon could have provided that would have exonerated him?
To be perfectly frank, Sargon had come with a full-throated apology. And I'm not saying an apology to the group that he was, trying to offend, because I understand that's not a savory group. I understand who Sargon is, and what he was trying to say. To say something like, "Hey guys, things got away from me," and that's not how I intended it. That's not how I normally speak. There are many...
But you know how he intended it. He has spoken out about it at length. You know he didn't intend to demean black people in the way that you described in your statement.
No. That's not what the statement said. So I'm saying is, especially if you take into consideration the second video when he doubled down of the statement, if he came out there repudiated and said, this is not what I'm about, and it was a poor choice of words, something to the effect of what Joe Rogan was saying about it.
Okay,
So she wanted an apology.
But it has to be genuine enough, so...
it needs to be a full-throated apology as well.
Yeah, exactly. Paranormal is real, I completely agree. She wants you groveling. She's basically... So Sargon has to be on his bended knee and go, "Please! Please, Patreon! I don't want... Oh, come back!" Well, like, what? Is he...
No bending of the knees. No, what? Well, okay, maybe that would be fine if Sargon did that. But we all know that Patreon is not bending the knee to any payment processes or anything for any particular reason.
Oh, hell no, they're not. But so that's what it has to be. That's what it has to go down to. Apparently, is somebody going, "Oh please, Patreon. I made that mistake and I'm so sorry." No.
So Vash, what I'm hearing from next be on Pornhub.
Well, probably. Like, this is just all kinds of fucked. Especially considering we saw page after page after page. Or I personally saw it. I couldn't show it on stream. But like I said, anyone could put that phrase inside of Patreon and see so many different pages on it. And the fact that, like, again, Antifa is still on Patreon, but, I guess until that became noticed, that they decided to say, oh well, that's fun for the whole fucking family. But you know, there's that. Let's go ahead and they do not want to admit that they did wrong. They do not want to admit that they wronged Sargon in this and then deplatformed
Well,
subscribe Star.
they can't. They can't because then they open themselves up to litigation.
Yeah. But I mean, they're saying all but. But here we go.
You know, that's not how I usually operate. I'm usually very articulate. I was tired. I was sick. You know, something that would help us. There's been nothing. Nothing even like that.
Okay, so they have to satisfy your subjective expectations, or whether or not there's enough atonement, enough apology, enough sensitivity.
No.
That's the evidence you're describing, because the request was for evidence.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I'm happy. I'm happy to look at each case individually, and as I'm just giving you an off-the-cuff place to start, but
Okay, but again, this standard, everything is individual, everything is subjective, everything is off the cuff, and I'm supposed to have confidence in this system. Are you kidding me?
Again, this is why I'm reaching out to you, because I'm happy to take your feedback. It's very helpful feedback, and I want to make this process a good one in the future. I love to stay in contact with you.
Notice how scripted that. I'm very happy with your feedback. That's very, very scriptive of Patreon, and that's what I've seen, even with some of the interactions with the very CEO of Patreon.
Well, Vash, not like I've ever spent any time, seen any scripts or anything for any company I've ever before, and using very certain phrase generalizations stuff to hit upon certain notes, letting whoever you're speaking with at the time to know that you're very happy to take your feedback is taken highly seriously. We're taking this all into consideration. Your opinion is important to us.
Yeah. Just legal jargon, like business jargon, just you know, try and keep a person like feeling, oh well, all right, I'm glad that you're doing something, whenever they're not doing anything at all.
I believe one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard is, "We've got a team on that."
Yeah. Oh.
I'm terrified, but we should go on.
Yeah, definitely. Here we go.
I've only been here a few months, so I'm trying to reach out to our creator community and understand what the perception is, where we can make improvements. I would really love to, you know, continue this conversation and have additional feedback.
Okay, that is helpful. Thank you for that, because I'm guessing that at some level you've been thrown into quite a difficult spot here. And I can sympathise with that, because I can understand that you've been tasked with defending something that, quite honestly, is very difficult to defend. I would not want to be in your position and have to defend this policy and this particular action, because I find them both to be fundamentally indefensible, as the market reaction has demonstrated. So nothing I'm saying is to be taken as any, you know, shot at you personally or anything, and I'm glad that you explained in the context to me, because that is helpful for me to understand the perspective you're coming from.
Absolutely! Yeah, I don't want to be in a vacuum, so I know that our time is running out, but why don't we have a check in the next couple of months? I'd really like to keep this dialogue open, if you're comfortable with that.
I cannot commit to that, because I cannot commit to your platform, but I will say that I'll give you one final question if you're willing to entertain it. And it's sort of to that spirit, because given the uncertainty that Patreon has created for people like me, creators like me, huge hitters who are creating their own alternatives, who have built their name on your platform, quite frankly, the market reality, you have prompted serious competition coming your way eminently. What would be the top reasons you would give me to stay on Patreon and not jump ship?
That's a really good question. So in my experience, this is one of the only companies that I've worked for where the people who work here genuinely care about creators. We're the only platform that would engage with creators like this that I've experienced. we understand the payment space, and that is critical to the success of a platform. So those are my personal reasons that I would stay. And as I would like to keep this dialogue going, and if I can give you my email address. I understand that's working with Patreon, so if it's that, I could connect with you on LinkedIn or something.
Okay, at this point, she is trying to seal the deal, as I would call it in a business admin sort of light. She's trying to keep a customer. Now, this is the very reason why I chose not to work for Comcast. Because personally, I do not agree with, like, I would be having to be in her position where I would have to defend a corporation that would basically have a policy in which the people there are like kind of going, well, what about this? And these are genuine problems that that Comcast was facing. Like, why are you bottlenecking? Why are you bottlenecking my internet? Which was one of the heavy hitters.
Well, you used over 250 gigs a month.
But I mean, the thing is it's like, well, if it's unlimited internet, it should be unlimited. Like, it should not be subject to that.
Yeah,
Air quotes unlimited.
there's usually a fine print that says up to a certain There's usually a fine print that says there's a certain number of unlimited that you get, and then it starts throttling.
Yeah. And to me, this is not like I said. If this was a stock, I would say bail. Like, just from this, the fact that she is trying to defend it, but at the same time, just like I said with Comcast, I chose not to work for it, and Luna can ask you, or Luna can tell you, that I was actually thinking, oh, work from home, and then I realized who I was going to be working for, which was Comcast, and I said, no, I'm not going to work there, because that would put me in a position where I can't flat out go, you know what, you're right about this. I would have to defend something that I don't necessarily believe in. And that's something that I will not do. I choose not to do it.
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of big companies, they have to also happen to pay very well. And if one of the number one corresponding things for your job performance doing whatever you got to do is your pay, then there are folks willing to defend many things in many different industries as well. One of the things that I actually noticed, which seemed interesting, and I'm sure a lot of folks on the internet and this greater sphere of YouTube would point out, is they said it's the only company that she saw that really cared about their content creators. And you know what, dude? I can actually believe that. But Patreon, they were a fledgling company not that long ago, but as they've grown and stuff, is this potentially an example of you either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain?
What is up with us doing all of these fucking Batman quotes? But but
I like that, man.
I do too. But
I am Batman.
but it's just the whole concept of it, to really think about it. The whole ordeal on that, and the fact that you and the other thing is whenever she said this is the only platform, yeah, it is the only platform since you took down Subscribestar.
Well, I believe she said company, and if she's worked in the sphere, again, there are only so many companies that are actively in the sphere, because it's a new sphere of just either payment processing, which I guess they are experts at, according to her, even though V snickered a little bit when he said that. But it does kind of bring to light they really are just an intermediary, and they're just kind of set up these process transactions between different folks, which, I mean, on the surface so far, I mean, like, yeah, they may just be doing the best they can with what they got. I mean, in the worst case scenario, I mean, it could be a Ponzi scheme, I guess.
I mean,
Oh.
with what it's looking to be, it seems to be all adding up to that.
You need to have a thorough accounting. As long as all the money's accounted, it makes it's not a Ponzi scheme. But if there happens to be a large hole where things aren't accounted for, then that sounds like the definition of a Ponzi scheme.
And so far, it seems to be that way. But let's go ahead and take a look.
But just so that you know, genuinely, I would like to keep this conversation going. I appreciate your comments, and I've appreciated listening to your comments on your podcast as well.
Sure, and I, despite the reality that I have massive disagreements with the policy and implementation of it, I do appreciate that you're willing to discuss these sorts of things. You're welcome to email me anytime. My email is in all of my videos. It's linked in all of them if you need to grab it, so I'd be happy to take an email from you whenever. Unfortunately, I just don't know if I'll have an ongoing communication with Patreon per se. There's just so much uncertainty that's been thrown into my relationship with Patreon at this point that I just can't be confident in it. So I can't make any commitments to the future because it doesn't seem like Patreon is willing to make a serious commitment to people like me. I don't like the precedent that I'm having to constantly consider whether a mob is going to take something damning I've done or said to Patreon, and then I'm going to be forced to bend the knee to Patreon or surrender my income. I'm not comfortable with that standard, and I don't think anyone really would be. So I don't know what's going to happen with me and Patreon. I wish I had a firm answer, and I wish I could give you a firmer answer on your request to further communicate. I appreciate that sentiment and requests sincerely, and I hope the best for you. It seems like you're open to the criticism and thoughts here, so I appreciate that, and I hope that everyone all the way up to Jack at Patreon is considering this seriously. I think that as these competitors rise up, the worst hit to Patreon is yet to come, and I think it's going to get worse from here, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I appreciate all of your comments. They're fair. It's a fair feedback, and I appreciate you being open to your comments. And if you're on Patreon in a few months, may I ask stands, and I would love to hear more.
All right, well, I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely, thank you.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all that.
Yes, you as well. Thanks, Matt. Bye-bye.
Alright, so that was the full thing of it.
Okay, can I just say she went from saying good feedback to fair feedback.
Yeah.
That means she didn't really care for the feedback she got.
Oh, that's not what you wanted to hear at all.
Definitely not, because I'm thinking that she might have gotten some sort of quota or something if she would have sealed the deal with them.
Well, that's another thing too. You go by the incentives, and anybody that's worked for a lot of large companies, they'll often have metrics and stuff. And I get why they have it, because you need to try to hit certain things, especially if you're a publicly traded company. The only problem is how much of your potential morality are you willing to leverage for that at times? Because especially if you're just going by a script, and especially if a company has you saying something that potentially you may know to be untrue, then you delve into that moral paradox again. It's like it's hard to hate on somebody for doing their job, but if you gotta lie to do your job, then I guess you end up with something like this. You're not necessarily say you're just kind of trying to excuse and skirt around things without saying particular words in a particular sequence.
Yeah. And exactly, Paranormal is real. Yeah, she agreed that the worst is yet to come for Patreon. Now, I'm going to go ahead and open up this tab, and I got to say thank you, Server Troll, for providing this. But we're going to go ahead and paste and go to the Breitbart. He was perhaps too cordial with Hart. Yeah. Patreon censorship causes heavy losses for creators as users flee site. Alright, now we'll we'll take a look here.
Professor Peterson himself lost 2,000 patrons.
Yeah.
So that's potentially 2,000 accounts just there that just left.
Yeah. Creators on crowdfunding site Patreon are reporting heavy losses and financial backers as users are fleeing the platform in protest over its censorship of political commentaries, including Sargon of Akkad. As they should. On Thursday.
Well, and then again, okay.
On Thursday, popular author Jordan B. Peterson declared, "I have lost about 2,000 Patreons at Patreon since the debacle with Sargon of Akkad. I know Dave Rubin is having the same trouble. Are other Patreon creators suffering from similar losses? As people bail from the platform." Now that's a little stupid. Yeah,
It goes into little videos and stuff. Yeah, but what I was able to this is you do see a lot of overlap there. So like if Sargon was banned and also you had a very large amount of his patrons starting to close up shop there, yeah, you're gonna see hits to people like Professor Peterson, to Dave Rubin, to Matt Christiansen, as we have in this previous call. He lost upwards of about, I think, 42% of his total Patreon revenue, which, I mean, that's a big hit to somebody that's working in the business that he is. But I think what's really telling to me is that it isn't just folks within this side of YouTube. You have another YouTuber out there. The guy just does shop videos and stuff like that, just woodworking and stuff. He's got like 1 million subscribers, and he's like, guys, he just urges everyone that follows him or is a patron of his to just close your Patreon, just close up shop. So when you have folks kind of not directly involved in this starting to stand on the principle of, listen, you might not like the speech that he's saying, but you know what? I'll defend to the death his right to say it. It's kind of like that old saying. It's even if you don't like what somebody says, you will defend their right to say it, because it's the principle of the thing.
Exactly. Alright, so we got Jordan B. Peterson saying that. We got dietofworms.us. I don't understand what the hell that is. Lost around 1/3 of their revenue. Ali Alexander. I've lost 15 to 20% of my monthly revenue. YouTuber Count Dankula allegedly lost around half of his backers on Patreon, and DJ Akira, the Don, has lost about 25%. And as you can see, Count Dankula, I've lost around roughly $600 to $700. God damn! Where I am right now, that would have been able to just pay my bills right there. I would not have needed anything else, and that would have paid all of my bills. Alright, now let's take a look. Akira lost about 25%, looking very angry, as he should be. Now let's take a look. Others who reported losses on Patreon include CRTV, host Roaming Millennial, podcast Sword and Scale, Andy Nago, and YouTube content creator Shamian. If I'm butchering any of these names, I'm sorry. Sword and Scale went as far as to say that they will leave the Patreon platform when a viable alternative is created. Unfortunately, it seems like Patreon does not want that viable alternative, because Subscribestar was looking, and I did look into Subscribestar, and I actually did fill out some of the information to Subscribestar. And they did look like it was a very, very competitive towards Patreon. It was very organized.
And then PayPal and Stripe pulled out, and that kind of just belly.
Yeah. this
And that's why this may actually turn into an antitrust situation here, because the sheer fact that it happened directly after. I mean, if you're going to go down the corporate route and like, well, we're going to deplatform these people, we need to get these folks off the internet. What you do is you give them maybe a little bit of time, and then you slowly. But then again, at the time, like Subscribestar probably would have seen a huge increase, so it would have been even. Dude, I mean, this. I don't know, dude. This just don't smell right.
Yeah, and popular author Sam Harris, who was the 11th most popular user on Patreon, closed his account in protest over the platform's censorship of political commentators. As many of, and this is a quote, as many of you know, the crowdfunding site Patreon has banned several prominent content creators from its platform. While the company insists that each was in violation of its terms of service, these recent expulsions seem more readily explained by political bias, declared Harris in a statement this week. Although I don't share the politics of the band members, I consider it no longer tenable to expose any part of my podcast funding to the whims of Patreon's Trust and Safety Committee. I will be deleting my Patreon account tomorrow. Patreon has purged several notable conservative and libertarian accounts from its platform, including Sargon of Akkad, Robert Spencer, Lauren Southern. Now, Lauren Southern, I can say that one was reasonable, and Brittany Pettibone. Pettibone? I don't know how to pronounce it. Sorry, Brittany.
You said it right the first time.
Despite this, Patreon has consistently allowed left-wing extremists to raise money on their site while calling for violence. Following the exodus of users from Patreon, and you did say that it was pretty much an exodus, the company allegedly reached out to creators on the website in an effort to reassure them and make them stay. Maria from Patreon to Matt Christiansen. Hello, Matt. My name is Maria. I'm on the Trust and Safety team here at Patreon. I understand that some of your patrons have left due to the decision of Patreon to remove Sargon of Akkad's creator page from our site. I wanted to reach out to you directly to address this topic, and I ensure you have all the information you need. Our experience with each other is individual, and we are open to speaking with you should you blah blah blah. Basically legal jargon. And here goes Matt Christiansen's tweet. Evidence that Patreon support, and Jack Conti are feeling some heat. Don't pretend that you care about me, my channel, or my patrons. You'll delete my account the second I say a bad word. Charlie Nash is a reporter for Breitbart. You can follow him on Facebook. Thank you, Charlie, for showing this to us and for making this article. So to anybody that wants to tweet him, that's Mr. Nashington. And also, I would also say like his page on Facebook. It seems like he's did pretty well on this article. So I usually like to say that because any article that I read, I try and look at the author of the article and kind of address them while I'm reviewing said article. But read more stories. No, we don't need to do that. And the rest of it is let's look at the comments on this, shall we? Since we got a little bit extra time, yeah, right?
What could be going on in the comments?
Yeah, exactly. That's where it's going to get really good, I think. Time for a massive backlash against these bastards. Well, alright, Reggie, duly noted. Patreon going down will cause a massive flow on effect across the industry. They will learn that their censorship ideology could cost them their fortunes. And seeing as the Silicon Valley creeps only care about money, it will change their behavior. I will say yes, Eddie 7000, you are correct on that, but at the same time, does it did it, why does it always have to go that far before these AAA people or these companies see that what they're doing is wrong? Why does it have to get to
Wait,
this
wait, wait a
point?
second, Vash, what you just said right there is this Gamergate 2.0?
Well, I mean, considering what I've heard on what's been happening with Blizzard and the fact that they are very much going back, I wouldn't say that this would be Gamergate per se, but very similar, yes.
It's Patron Gate.
Yeah. It's Patron Gate. There we go. Hashtag Patreon Gate. Yeah, if you guys could get that trending, that'd be awesome. But
Oh God, they won't be getting interviewed by the New York Times.
oh, I don't mind. But
Oh, dude, I wonder if it'll be the same guy that the Harvard Club. He's pretty cool.
yeah, that wouldn't be bad. But here we go. Please add porn, Pinterest, Twitter to your list. I don't. What? Okay. Just gonna and PayPal. Okay. Those are witty names, but I bet you'll still use both every week. I don't think so. We got an amen in the chat. Amen, brother. Woo! All right. And we got a Jim Mason. It's working well for China. We keep making these assumptions they will get it at some point, but we neglect to notice that they are stifling any attempts at alternatives. At this point, the registers? Yeah. The registrators?
Registrars.
Registrars, okay. Themselves are censoring people. That means you cannot have a domain name. The payment processors are also censoring people, which means you cannot process any money through your site even if the registrars let you have one. The if oh, go ahead.
Wait, hold on, wait. I'm just coming to realize something. It's one of the biggest arguments that you have is, well, if these companies are individuals and the Constitution protects you from discrimination of the government. I thought the whole bake the cake argument was that it was a freedom of religion for him to say, I don't want to have to do this. And that's a private business.
I don't know. I wouldn't want to say these companies are individuals because that's how you get President Mickey Mouse.
Well. Yeah, we live in very interesting times. But no, I thought the whole precedent for the bake the cake, that whole argument there was religious freedom, which allowed that said individual to discriminate against it. I mean, you can argue either way, but like that was an actual lawsuit that went to the Supreme Court.
Oh yeah.
So if
gay,
we're dealing with something similar here,
case.
if we're talking about political ideology, the thing is, if this was because of political ideology or any type of political affiliation, California is one of only 2 states in the United States of America and the District of Columbia to protect that as a it's a protected class.
Yeah, I mean, personally, like I said, I personally don't believe that corporations should be treated as individuals because that's whenever, like I said, you get President Mickey Mouse.
Well, corporations are people, my friend, as said by good old Governor Romney there, which is it's an accurate statement in what has been ruled by the Supreme Court and Citizens United. I mean, I don't necessarily have to like it. I'm just saying that it's a thing.
Yeah, but
that's another argument in and of itself.
Yep, and if there were an actual free market, then yes, Patreon would be in trouble. There isn't one though. There is a coordinated cabal of companies that control all access to everything you need in order to actually build a platform, and they are entirely totalitarian minded. They're, I can't say I disagree with what he's saying there. Um, there will be nowhere to run. Subscribestar, the place people flocked to when fleeing Patreon, had its major payment processors ban them within days. They are shutting all of the doors and silencing all of the critics. China is winning, and these big companies are more than happy to join them in their expansion of communism as long as they have a seat at the table of power at the end of the day. It's pretty terrifying. Freedom is losing at the moment.
Well, Patreon was arguing for more of an individualistic perspective. It did depend on each individual situation, totality of anything, the general mimetic that was subjectively taken away from said individual. Because Matt, as voiced by Sargon in that, was just going and saying, well, no, folks should be treated equally under the terms of service there. And she kind of had to kind of talk around it. And you know what? I think she did probably about the best job you could try to do. But like she said, she had only been there for a few months. Mm-hmm. She had very nice things to say about her employer, which, I mean, again, and she made sure that neither her nor Matt themselves were recording said conversation. But due to the power of the internet and the current year 2018, we managed to materialize a transcript. So I'd like to thank V and Sargon for their little dictation of that.
Yep. And now we got Bobster. Must be end times, because Satan sure seems to be working overtime these days. Oh, okay, whatever. Duly noted. That's nice. Alright, Eddie 7000 again. Freedom is sitting on its ass at home and complaining online. French peasants are burning cars and smashing shop windows. I reckon the peasants are going to win and freedom is going to lose at this rate. Well, I mean, I gotta say on that, last time I checked, France did pretty fucking well at that, considering that even the cops are saying the cops went on strike for the Yellow Jackets. But I also have said before on this, whenever I first started seeing the Yellow Jackets, was that it was more of a cycle that France goes through every few generations to 100 years or so, where they have a revolution. It just seems to be that way.
Yeah. I gotta think that any leaders in France still remember what's happened in the past. I think that's something you gotta try to keep in mind. Because I mean, you don't want to lose the folks. Cause if you lose the folks and they think you're being tyrannical, then they'll actually do something about it.
Yep. You have a YouTube video out of you with your torch. It will happen. Be patient. All right, and then that's Ashley Nicely. That's pretty cool. Pro-Trump supporter. All right, neat. David Koob, having their greed in conflict with their ideology. What the hell they must have been. What the hell they must have been going through. They must be going through. Or what hell they must be going through. There we go. Sorry, I butchered that shit. There is always PayPal. Yes, there is, and that is kind of what I've been doing right now, is using PayPal.
Well, even some folks have lost the ability to utilize PayPal. I think Alex Jones himself may have been kicked off. And if PayPal are they a bank at this point? Because I remember we checked I think 4 months ago, and they did provide certain loans, but they were still not classified as a bank. So they're kind of skirting this unknown territory at the end of that, saying, well, we have all the powers of a bank, but we don't have all the responsibilities, which, I mean, corporately, I mean, I guess that makes them smart because it provides them to keep away from certain regulations, but, I mean, the law does always lag behind technology. This is just something that, I mean, I learned a long time ago, and folks have always said that, but I don't know, Are we starting to get clarification here?
Let's see here. This is actually the feel-good story of the day. Yeah, I know, right? No, that was the story about how it was okay to suspend black kids again. No, I I don't agree with that. All right, you can't even stay
You
on
decided
topic.
to go into the comments, Vash. That's you.
Yeah, I mean there's always one, but then there was a reoccurrence of you can't even stay on topic, loser. I'm sorry for okay, whatever. Um, let's see here. I thought that the news of the day was that either Mad Dog resigning because he is tired of babysitting, Trump surrendering to ISIS and retreating in disgrace. Okay, hold up. How is that? How is bringing our forces back? Okay, that's entirely a different subject, but there's that. I honestly
It's a
think
rabbit
that
hole of the internet, man.
I'll agree with the amazing atheist. Trump literally broke the internet by deciding to pull out of Syria, and I don't understand why these people like. Okay, you have to say either war is bad or Orange Man that is president is bad. Like, okay, so with what you're saying here, war is good. Trump's tariffs and trade wars sinking the U.S. stock market. Can't disagree completely, but at the same time, I can't completely agree with that because there's also a lot of people that are in the Senate that keeps on leaving on that.
Well, Vash. Unfortunately, once we get into presidential politics, it's
Yeah.
well, now we're trying to solve so many of the world's problems
Yeah,
at once.
that's
only
okay.
too lone Dargan on the internet.
Yeah, that is Mattis is not is a non-story. All right, getting political. Don't care. And let's see here. Guess you do not read any financial sites. The manufacturing is at an all-time high. Okay, whatever. Um, let's see here. It is called Get an Entrepreneur with a banking and programming background that knows how to make a Gab version of Patreon to compete. Well, I think
What
that's
that
what
guy said.
Subscribestar did.
Well, no, I think they were kind of a much smaller Patreon. They were kind of copied and pasted. They still run into the same issues apparently with payment processes. I believe what Professor Peterson and Dave Rubin are working on, there have been some projects in the background that I guess apparently can be adapted to utilize a payment processing model. What they would have to do in order to overcome these issues is either maybe truly set up a form of just a generalized escrow account based system where just everything just goes to Patreon and then Patreon disseminates it. And I don't know if individual merchant IDs for everyone is what's needed or just how this specifically works, but I mean, either you're going to have a very large either staff of lawyers or extremely competent people knowing how to prevent said processes from pulling out, or you're basically just going to have to set up your own little network backdoor, which I believe is possible. And V, on a live stream with one of the guys running either a hentai website or whatever, said, yes, individuals, like, you can do these things. It's just you actually need to get out and establish the relationships and set up your own network. And he said it's possible, but it's just many folks don't know how to do it. So if you see PayPal or Stripe, you're like, oh, just use these guys because they're big, they're established, and it makes it easy.
Yeah. And, oh, here we go. Here's one that's a bit more spicy. Twitter and Facebook need a dose of the same medicine. So does YouTube. They have been demonetizing channels for a long time, and nothing has been being done about that. And then Bob Dog, which I gotta say is my favorite one so far. But it's for your own good. We're protecting you from bad ideas. Think of the children. And
Well, I believe it was Secretary Clinton once said, Yeah, we wouldn't give our enemies guns. Why would we give them ideas? That may not have been directly Secretary Clinton, but I believe it was in an email that was released to the public via WikiLeaks.
But let's see here. Yeah, protecting us and only allowing us to see what they want us to see. Sounds like China. Kinda. Nice try. That's what the NRA and KKK are for. Well, alright, that escalated.
I don't think those things are equivalent.
Yeah, that is definitely not. How about Breitbart of Fox News? Such a pathetic troll, whatever. Alright, well, that was enough of those comments, really. But the story remains the same. And I must say that I am rather concerned with how Patreon is with how Patreon is setting themselves up.
I mean it is highly concerning just because and these things have dated. Pretty sure Sargon at one time or another he's like, oh yeah, I'm not sure, just waiting for the day for myself to wake up and either my YouTube channel with upwards of 900,000 subscribers is gone, or my Patreon with like 12 grand and monthly donations is gone, and just I think a lot of this comes down to it's a form of, and this is something that really does go into like the private charity or private supporting vein, because you're not using a government institution or platform for that. You're using independent ones that allow people to help people. And I do think that this is a model that, if done correctly, can provide a mass benefit to either just help out your fellow human being, or if someone's doing something, they're producing something, and you want to support that person for whatever reason, you have the ability to do that. And if we are going to factor in something such as political ideology, then it's like, what happens? It's like, well, if anything happens, if you're in trouble, then, well, that can just all be taken away like that. And how is it done? Well, if we don't like your ideas, then that's very dangerous, because even if you don't like these people's ideas, what ends up happening if the dynamic flips? What happens if those folks end up controlling the reins of power and they don't like your ideas? So that's why I think that's a very dangerous precedent.
Yeah, and I gotta say, well, it's about 3-hour mark right now. That's pretty awesome that we were able to cover this in detail. Great fucking detail. But
no,
I
dude,
gotta say,
we brought up a bunch of things that I haven't even fully kicked around yet.
I gotta say, if anything were to happen out of this, I would hope that the motherfucking Dargun gets to meet the motherfucking Sargon. But
oh, that'd be pretty cool. I saw him run one of those free speech events, but he was pretty busy, and it's like, well, I already kind of know what Sargon means, but
yeah.
It's always nice to have a chat with different folks.
Yeah, I would honestly love to give him an interview, to be honest. Like, just to see what he thinks about all this. Just a one-on-one type of thing. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the content, please leave a like. Make sure to share this to anybody, and yeah, I guess I'll see you guys in the next stream.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Peace out, everybody.